Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Anime Sovereigns podcast number 19. It's been a while after we kind of went into a little bit of a cooldown period after the Anime of the Year awards, but we are back. We are unfortunately down one member due to him being sucked into the void by his family. And so he will not be here for this episode, but we'll do our best to cover kind of some of the stuff that he had, or maybe we'll just say fuck it and just ignore it. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But
I
don't think any of us have seen Link Click.
Yeah, I haven't, but yeah. So today we're gonna be covering something that's actually quite interesting. We're gonna be covering anime originals, which I've always spoken highly of originals. They happen to be my favorite type of, I guess it's not an adaptation because they're not adaptations at all. But I always like series that are originals because it's just kind of like freedom. Like they don't have to abide by like any source material. And I think it's like a really, really good like window of opportunity for studios to get creative and just kind of go crazy with whatever concepts that they come up with. And so like, to me, I kind of get like the essence of a studio or essence of a staff whenever originals are involved. That's not to say adaptations can't be very, very good, but I don't think it's a coincidence that like a lot of my favorite shows are originals. Like sometimes I look at I look at the stuff I have rated highly and I'm like, man, I just really liked originals. It turns out I don't know where along the way that happened either, because like I don't think anyone really starts with originals like that, like because most of the most popular shows are definitely adaptations. I don't know like what was the show that like kind of set me on this path, but I don't know, originals are fucking dope. I don't know what else to say.
When you haven't like seen like that much anime, like say you're pretty early in your like anime watching tenure, you probably like don't even like know what is original and what's not that you're watching.
That's true.
Like it's only something that you like start to pay attention to like after you get to a certain point and watch a certain amount of shows where you're like, where did this shit actually come from? Because like you said, most of a vast majority of like the works in the anime ecosystem are adaptations from other works.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only like when like a show ends and you're like, oh, like is there more? And then you find out that there's like source material to it, is like, and then they might dive into like that source material, which is like typically like manga or light novel or what have you, like some sort of like complementary like source material type of thing. It's like a pleasant surprise, like when you find like a show that you're really invested in, and then you realize that it is original. No pre-existing source material, no like pre-existing like established audience that it had before, and I think like that aspect of it is like really impressive because, like the nature of like adaptations is like they're generally like low risk. If you ask me, because they have the benefit of like riding off of like the established success of its source material. So like if something is good in this medium, as long as like the people like leading the adaptation understand like what makes that good chances that that adaptation like will please the fans, and be successful in its own right. Originals do not have any of like that type of like external support going for them. And so, like, they kind of need to establish and stand on their own merits, so to speak.
Yeah.
To me, like, that's really cool.
I mean, it's actually funny. I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but Dylan and I actually had a conversation about, like, we were thinking about, like, what, generally, like, what sources, like, tend to be... what sources tend to produce like the highest quality of like shows. So it was like a conversation we were having, which is like really funny because like there are like so many different types of adaptations in and of itself, but then there's just like these shows that they're just like, we're just gonna do this, and sometimes it leads to like some really, really amazing stuff, and sometimes it's not great. So it's definitely like I definitely agree with it being like higher risk. I think like some of the medium's like greatest accomplishments and also some of their biggest flops come from originals, just because like if you're bad, like no one's gonna stand up for you. Like when you're an adaptation, like it has to have a certain level of popularity or a certain size of fan base to even like get an adaptation in the first place. Generally, like the shows that are getting adaptations are the ones that do well in sales and stuff like that. And so like obviously, regardless of whether it's necessarily like written well or whatever, there are people that like it. There's at least like some people that like it. It's not like that for originals. It's just like, we're just gonna put this out there, and there is actually a chance that everyone hates it. There's there is that possibility at the end of the day. But those are not the ones that we're gonna be speaking about today. Today we're gonna be covering originals that are very, very much standout. And this was like, if we had unlimited time, we could probably go on for so many hours about great shows that come from producing from originals. But we handpicked out a few, and yeah, we just wanted to share them with you guys because there's definitely some really, really great stuff out there. Some recent, some old, but all of them very, very impactful in and of themselves. And so what better way to kick things off than with our first show, Code Geass. And like Code Geass is so funny because like when we talked about early on into your anime watching career, a lot of people don't know anything about source, like where it actually comes from. And like I think this is like one of the shows that a lot of the time I see people talk about it and they're surprised that it's original. they're surprised. Yeah. They're surprised that it's original because Code Geass is I don't think anyone can really argue that this in terms of the medium, this is a classic, like bona fide. And it is original. and it's crazy because like sometimes originals, like they go back and they put it into like written formats too. Like sometimes it's done the opposite way, which is like not overly common, but like some shows do that. And Code, it's like one of those gold standard shows. Like there's so many shows that like take inspiration from it. There's so many cool things that it does, and I think a lot of that creativity that it produces is because it is original, right? And that's the coolest thing, is when it feels like they would not have been able to create this spectacular of a show in anime, if they had to abide by source material, because it is bounds, right? At the end of the day, regardless of whether those bounds are good or bad. Regardless of whether you're being adapted from something that is very standout or something that maybe isn't that great, right? Those are bounds. Like when we're talking about adaptation, you have to abide by your source material in some capacity. Now some take liberty more than others. We've seen some very loose adaptations in the past as well, but it is at the end of the day like something that the original fan base is like looking to expect, and something that they expect to be at least somewhat familiar with, and like, man, I mean this show is like it's so eccentric. Like it's so
it's funny when you kind of look at Code Geass, because you're just kind of like at the absolute core of what this show is, like people most mecha shows are like Gundam and stuff like that are like very, very heavily political. It's about like war and stuff, but I'd say Code Geass is a more personal story. That's more like politics are very relevant, but I think that the core of the story is more about like the mind games between characters and like the more specific interactions of like how the people are fitting into like their world. And so it's like, it's funny when like you think like a lot of comparisons are made between Code Geass and Death Note. Yeah. So it's like very funny when you're just like thinking like, okay, well, because Code Geass is an original, in the planning room, they were probably like, well, this is a Sunrise show, so let's add mechs. It's like only originals, And I'm appreciative of the mechs. Yeah. Robots are cool. Yeah, no, that's right. It's just, you mentioned how eccentric the show is in some ways, and it's like, it's true. Like a show like this where the focus of like the combat is mostly the mental battle between like Lelouch's plan, his Keikaku, and like all the other people that are like trying to, push their political agendas. It's just like in the middle of this, it's just like, oh, they have robots too. Sunrise just has meetings and they're like, you know what, this is great, but where are the mechs?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that part, because like I feel like there are a bunch of like genres or like, you know, like aesthetic standards that like are associated like with anime like before they're associated with like any other mediums, and I think like mechs is like one of those. Because like when like mechs, like kaiju mechs especially, is like an anime thing. Like another one that's like kind of like very anime is like Magical Girls as well. Like these, there are like certain things that like people associate with anime first, and I think that like, you know, this is like obviously like this is like far from like one of like the first like mech shows, but it's definitely like one of the ones that like people experience first and like still have fond memories of today, even like years and years and years later.
For sure.
Because like this is like one of like the gateway animes, and it's like it's not hard to see why. Like it's very like the mental battles and like, you know, like Bobby's saying, like, you know, the personal interactions between certain characters like throughout the show is really like, you know, what keeps people like invested. I remember like, you know, a personal anecdote of like one of our friends who was like getting into anime like years and years and years ago. And he specifically asked like, I want more shows like Code Geass and Death Note. And then like he described it as like, you know, the mental like chess battle type archetype. And then I realized like how like, you know, much shows like Code Geass like have impacted certain shows like, you know, in like, you know, present day. Like think of something like Kaguya. Like while it's like not like, you know, a direct like, oh yeah, it was inspired by Code Geass, like there's no direct like correlation, but it's like the mental battle aspect of it as
for sure,
you know, coming back and keeping people like, you know, enjoying the show like as it goes on.
I mean, like there's like in anime there's a lot of different ways to fight. Like we've seen like so many different ways. Like, but like obviously the most popular shows out there, like in terms of like action anime, are usually like actually just straight up fighting, right? Like this two guys punching each other in the face, or maybe sometimes they have a sword, or whatever the fuck they're doing in Yu Yu Hakusho is spirit powers and shit. Like there's just like a lot of different shit. When it comes to fighting, and like it's cool that there are shows that like kind of approach it in a different way. Like I've always been more of a fan of like Battle of Wits. I don't know, it's just something that just kind of intrigues me more. keeps me more compelled. I think maybe it's because it's not done as often. Is that why it feels that way? But the show like definitely, like like you said, like there's a lot of shows that probably like can't draw like super strong like direct connections between Code and itself, but there are a lot of shows that could loosely be like, yeah, you know, we got this concept or the thought for this, you know, this dynamic between our characters from Code Geass. And if you do enough digging, you'll find that, you know, there's plenty of inspiration that has been taken from the show in the 15-16 years that it's been out. Like it is more than an impact show whenever we talk about, you know, how it changed the face of the medium, and it's definitely one that I can't really see. It's like losing this show would be like quite a significant hit. Like this would not be I would fight for this show if I had to. I would you're not going anywhere, you're not getting rid of Code Geass. It is just done too much. I think there's so many cool things. There's so many cool things that it's done. Good.
When it gets to the point where like people are literally like when they're asking for recommendations, they're like, I want a show like Code Geass. I think says a lot. Where like how much like the show has like stuck with people over the years, and to the point where they're like continuously seeking out shows and comparing it to this show. Yeah.
Get you a show like that, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. There's this like it's like one of those things where I feel like it's also one of those shows that everyone knows at this point, right? Like it's not like it's not a show that's like, you know, veiled in obscurity or anything. Like everyone knows about Code Geass, and 99.9% of people will be like, yeah, no, that's definitely quality, and it definitely deserves the praise that it gets. People will talk about some of the spin-offs or some of the other things that arose from it, but that's a different story. Like that's a completely that's a different conversation. But I think like most people will definitely agree that not only is it quality, but it has reached that level of like legendary status where I think so long as the medium is popular and spoken about, like this will always be in the conversation when it comes to shows. So yeah, just such a good show, man. I have to go back and rewatch it. It's been a while since I watched. I'm gonna go back and
it's literally been
watch it again.
Years and years. I probably like haven't like watched it like since like high school.
Yeah,
so it's been that long.
It's like it's a good binge too. Like I think it's a really good binge.
First time I watched, I saw the whole show in one day.
Yeah.
It's like cool. It's like 50 episodes.
I know that, bro. I was gonna like speak for Miguel because like Miguel always like says or recounts his experience with the show, like watching it like within like 2 days or something, like watching like the first season and the next season or whatnot. And I'm like, dude, that's fucking crazy. Like this, like the original series is like 50 episodes. Like,
yeah,
we really had a lot of time when we were young.
We
did.
We did. Oh shit. Yo, thank you for the raid, brother. Out of nowhere.
Nitro?
Hey, that's what's up. Talking about anime. What's up, people? How you guys doing? But yeah, so Code, yeah. I mean, I don't really have much more to say about Code. It's just incredible, honestly. If you're out there and like, there's a lot of people that probably are like into anime now that kind of like skip the classics in a lot of ways, like modern fans. I would definitely give this a chance. Like, go back and give it a watch. I know, you see something produced before 2015 and you're like, oh my God, like, what do you mean? Like, I guess it's 2012 would be the cutoff. Like, ew, gross. Like, before 2012, like, what the hell? But promise that this show has just done a lot. And I think it still holds up pretty nicely as well.
I feel like the animation still holds up pretty nicely.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's still like there are shows that are really really good but don't age well. I don't think that really applies here. I think it does age pretty nicely.
Show also has the legendary status of like one of the best anime endings of all time, and it still comes up in those conversations.
Yeah, true. Mm-hmm. True.
Like even if you don't particularly enjoy like the politics or the mind games, this is a show that flies by the seat of its pants. So. It will keep your attention one way or another.
True. All right. So I don't think we have like an order like we want to go in. So I mean, whoever wants to pick up next and talk about their first show, feel free. Like I mean, we
really can just like go down the list. So like, Khalil,
want to go down the list?
Probably like start us off.
Okay. All right. So Jeffrey brought up concepts that are really like you really think about anime first when you talk about concepts, and Mex was one of those, but one of the other ones that he talked about was magical girls. And magical girls are something that changed with this show that we're going to talk about next, which is Madoka Magica. And so prior to Madoka Magica, magical girls were very I mean happy, I guess is the word, like much more lighthearted. Like there were your Sailor Moons and whatnot. You're fighting evil for justice, but the narratives were like very they had wider appeal just because they weren't as dark. And Madoka is kind of like a turning point of the magical girl subgenre, because not only were they not as popular, like obviously Sailor Moon and shows like that were around and they were relevant, but Madoka did two things. One, it kind of like brought magical girls a little bit further into the mainstream, and it also created this dynamic where even though it's the characters are very like cute and aesthetically pleasing, the subject material is very dire and has some really it's very graphic is how I would put it. Madoka is a show that I think has changed its subgenre. And when we talk about shows that are standout, this is the type of show that comes to mind first for me. It's like shows that literally change the face of the genre that they're in. And it's a trip. It is absolutely a trip. I remember being super surprised at what I was watching. Like, I don't remember how I even picked up Madoka. I literally don't remember what made me pick up the show in the first place. But I do remember, one, watching it all in one sitting, and two, just being like completely blown back by the fact that the juxtaposition between, the characters that I'm looking at and what is happening to those characters. It was just like, I cannot believe that they did this. And somewhere along the way, I was like, this is amazing. I was like, this is incredible. I don't know how they managed to do this. But Madoka, without spoiling too hard, it really creates an interesting perspective on magical girl narrative, where there is this theme of sacrifice, right? And these characters that want this power of being magical girls have to give up something in return, and that is the strongest theme that is present throughout the entire show. Because now, obviously there's the follow-up movie Rebellion, which we could also go on for hours and hours about. That is a whole different conversation in and of itself. And then there's also the spin-off series with Magia Record. But this theme of like sacrifice, and despite being magical girls, the world that they're in is very, very ugly and very corrupt. And there's so many things that go into it. And it's like one of those pairings that, Shaft, I can't see another studio but Shaft doing it. Like, it's kind of like one of their, in my eyes, one of their crown jewels. Like, it's like the show that made me auto watch any Shaft show. Like this is the one, right? We all have that show that like makes us fall in love with the studio. For me, it was definitely Madoka, and I didn't watch it on release. It was definitely a few years after it came out that I went back and decided to give it a try. But it is now, it's like in my top 3 of shows. I absolutely love this series. There was like literally, like, I like screamed at the top of my lungs whenever the new movie got announced, because I didn't think we were getting any more. I thought we were done. I think everyone thought we were done after what happened with Rebellion. And Rebellion in and of itself is like one of those things that people still talk about to this day, even though the series, we thought it was done, right? We thought it was over and done with, but even like years after, like, people still argue about, what does the end of Rebellion mean? Like, what is that? What even happened? Like, what happened to me here? And so like, I'm super excited for whatever comes next with this show. And it's like, I'll watch any spin-off or side story or whatever, but I definitely think that it couldn't have been done as well if it had to abide by source material. Like, they really just got to go ham with this one. They really just
movies like Rebellion are like so transformative. And just to like give like a non-spoiler for the people who don't know, like, what Rebellion does to the main series is that it completely recontextualizes what you understand as like the canon material. Like, it's not, so you understand that stuff in the canon happens, but like Rebellion takes you down another like trail of thought from a different perspective that makes you realize, oh, everything I thought I knew was actually bullshit. And so it's one of those things where you feel like you only understood one perspective of a conflict, and when you understand a different perspective, it completely changes how you see the entire story. And so it's like, you can't really do that in like a not original. You can only really do that when you're an original anime, like you can't. Other series that do things like this, like Evangelion, for example, like you can't really have these incredibly transformative movies without that type of source material. Obviously, exceptions exist. Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, and Haruhi's a light novel series. But like, it's so much easier to be able to have these really like transformative movies for series when it's an original, because obviously it's like you can just kind of take it wherever you want. You don't have to abide by a vision. You know, you can transform the vision into something new.
Agreed. I just it just feels like, you know, Maho Shoujo would not be the same without this show. Like what we're looking at in 2023, and there's been a lot of shows that have tried to emulate that same impactfulness. And like none,
for better, for worse.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, we could talk about shows like Magical Girl Sight, which we love to laugh at all the time. About
as well.
Magical Girl Raising Project, which is definitely like, you can definitely tell that like these shows would not have existed if Madoka didn't do it first. And we're kind of blessed. We're in the blessed timeline where Madoka came first, right? Like where it was done in a way that was quality to the point where like other shows even want to emulate it in the first place.
I mean, like, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have like Wonder Egg priority at all.
Yeah, I agreed.
For Madoka.
Agreed. Yeah, like even though that's not like it's not a hard Maho Shoujo show, but like you watch it and you're like, okay, this is Madoka. Like this is kind of like I can see the comparisons here. Like not only thematically, but you know, they're literally there are points where they have like magical girl powers. And stuff like that. Now I think I remember talking about that like when Wonder Egg was airing. I was like, isn't this a magical girl show? Like this kind of isn't this kind of what they're doing? Isn't this kind of, but yeah,
no, you can look at it like that. It's
yeah. At least in one perspective, you know. Obviously there are other things that show brings to the table, but you know, even loosely, there are definitely shows that draw inspiration from it, and that's like really. That's really all you can ask for when we talk about quality series. Like, is it inspiring more shows to be like it? Definitely think it's yes for this one. I don't know when we're gonna get new movie information, but like, bro, like I'm just, like, can I get that? Like, please, like, can y'all stop? Like we've been like, cause like really like we were blindsided, right? We were completely blindsided when this was a thing. Like I remember when the announcement happened, we were like, what the fuck? Like I pretty much everyone had accepted that, you know, Rebellion was the end and we were just gonna, you know, talk about what Rebellion meant until the end of time. But now that they're doing follow-up content, it's like, bro, I don't know what the hell they're gonna do. I have no idea. Like even this in and of itself, like the cover is like, this says a lot. Like this, what is going on here? Are they gonna fuck my whole life up again? The answer is yes, of course. Of course they're gonna do that again. It's just a matter of when. Like when is it gonna happen? So, you know.
I definitely thought we were getting punked when this announcement dropped because, like, you know, obviously like this was announced like for like the 10th anniversary of the series, and like amongst like everybody else who was like celebrating it, I'm like, oh, like everybody is like, you know, recognizing that like, you know, Madoka is like 10 years old. Like also like, good God, it's 10 years old. That's
yeah,
that's a long time. And then I saw this, I'm like, oh yeah, it's like another like celebration. And then I find out it's like a movie. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And I had to like go through all the channels to like verify that this is like, this information was true. And I'm like, oh shit.
I know. It's like, oh man, it's such a good timeline. I'm willing to. It's like one of those things where like, you know, to me, like if something's quality, I'm willing to wait. Like it's fine. Whenever it happens, whenever they feel like it's ready, I'm definitely gonna like. I hope that there are theaters around me that air it. I'm definitely gonna go see that shit in theaters, if I can. But yeah, it's just a matter, just a waiting game. Good.
Yeah, we definitely like can't undersell like how influential like this show was, like not only to like the magical girl genre, but like to anime like viewing in general. Because like when people talk about like the 3-episode rule in anime, which is pretty self-explanatory, like
literally
you give an episode like three you give a series 3 episodes to make a judgment on it. That is from this series. Like, if you can like pinpoint where that came from, it was this, and for good reason. It's because this series, you know, without spoiling, is one of like the best series for subverting your expectations from the first few episodes to where the series eventually goes. And like it really does hit you like a truck the first time if you do not brace yourself for it. If you do not know what's coming at you, you will like feel the impact of it. And it still holds up today. Like I remember like at the turn of like 2020, like when people were talking about like the best anime of the decade, this was definitely in the conversation, and you know, rightfully so. Like,
yeah,
the entire anime industry would not be the same without this. Like, this opened the gate for a lot of like different and, you know, more ambitious types of storytelling. If you've seen like any Shaft show, like this is probably like the one that you've seen. And that opens up, you know, the wonders of Shaft to anybody who has like seen like Madoka. The show has done too much for the anime industry.
Yeah, good.
It may not have been like the first darker magical girl series, but it definitely did popularize it.
Yeah,
revolutionize it
for sure. My only regret with this show is that the nature of you know, like its key visuals and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of people that will look at the show and be like, I'm not watching that. That's for girls. Like, that's too girl. It's too juvenile. I'm too manly. I'm too masculine to be watching shows about this. Promise you, you're not that guy. Promise you, you're not that guy.
You are not him.
I promise you that if you actually like give the show a chance, you will be flabbergasted at you know how deep and compelling some of its storytelling is.
Everything.
Good. I was saying like,
oh my god.
Go ahead. You're good.
It's like everything about like the key art to like the first 3 episodes, so like even the endings and the opening, it's like deceiving. Like the way it just gets you, it's just
they're setting you up, bro.
You just gotta watch it.
They're setting you up. All I can say is the reason I have a little like Bobby sent me a fucking little cube that I have sitting on my microphone whenever I stream. There's a reason for that. And I will leave it at that. So give it a chance if you haven't already. And you know, it is like I said, I anxiously await whenever movie 4 info drops. But you know, we'll play the waiting game until then. Okay, so who's next on the list? Bobby, you have what you want to talk about, bruh?
I was looking at my anime list like prior to the podcast, and I was like, damn, bro, so many of my favorite shows are actually just adaptations.
Oh, I do like that.
I was like, that's crazy. And so I don't want to say this show because I feel like I've brought it up too many times on the podcast already. But
say it anyway.
Psycho-Pass is the one.
Okay, gotcha. He's like, bruh, everything I watch is an adaptation.
Bro, it's true.
I mean, people, bro.
I mean, just like a thing. So like, I'm a huge manga fan, and so a lot of things, it just happens. There's a lot of anime based on manga, so it's like, and when you watch those anime, a lot of times you can tell that it's based on manga. Very funny, because like, I mean, I won't digress too far because we're about to talk about Psycho-Pass. Like, I've been watching Blue Lock, and I'm like, this is the most manga.
Oh my god, yes, it
of all
is.
time.
You're so right. Oh my god.
But, like, you can feel it. It's like when they talk, when they're on one freeze frame and say a paragraph, you're like, yeah, that's a manga, bro.
Yep, that was a panel. Yep.
Yeah, but Psycho-Pass is like a show where it's funny because a lot of the anime that get made are shows that people know are successful. Like Jeffrey mentioned about like how certain things more, you know, it's more guaranteed to be successful. Obviously, anime, especially
Bobby,
like
you're kind of cutting out right now, bro.
Yo,
I had to that was.
Let me see what I can do about that. I'll see what I can. Am I still like that?
No, you're fine.
Yeah, good.
I think.
Okay, so in the year 2012, you know, anime is much less big than it is now. A lot of the anime that gets made are, you know, they're kind of pandering. You know, obviously there's some works that are still incredible, but you have to make something, you know, kind of safe. You know, back then you can't really like experiment too hard. It's not the Japanese bubble economy. You know, you can't be the 80s where they just do literally anything in an OVA. It's just like, so a lot of shows are adaptations. But Psychopath did something a little bit different. So Gen Urobuchi, when he made this series, his idea was, well, what if I made an anime not catered to anime fans? Crazy idea.
Whoa.
No, insane. What? Literally no way. Everything has to be from a visual novel, a light novel, or a manga. But he was like, okay, I'm gonna make this show, which is like, people compare it to like Minority Report. Basically, the brief summary is the cops in this show have guns that can read your brain, and then you have to be like, okay, they can judge whether or not you're a quote unquote latent criminal, as in like your proclivity to like commit a crime is high.
Mm-hmm.
They'll arrest you and you haven't even committed anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool concept, pretty neat. There's a lot of things in Psychopaths that really can only be done because it's original, because you know you're kind of just letting Gen Urobuchi like do his thing in a way.
By the way.
Yeah, there's a lot of like visual stuff that's like really cool. Like in some ways you could almost say that it almost feels like a novel too, because he is like he is just a writer at heart.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of like references
mm-hmm.
to there's a lot of references to just a lot of literature.
Mm-hmm.
And so in some ways I almost feel like as an original, like it's kind of funny, because it's like if you're talking about all this weird nonsense, like you're talking about Gulliver's Travels and like you're quoting the Bible,
mm-hmm.
you're talking about like Plato, like Aristotle, like whatever, it's just like, who the fuck wants to watch this? But like I don't know, I want to watch it. That was me.
I'm him.
And especially, you know, I actually watched this show weekly when it was coming out.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, like, the mystery and the way that the world was like being created, the fact that there was like zero chance of spoilers because like literally no one could possibly know what the story was, that was
mm-hmm.
nice.
Yeah. No, that's like, it's like kind of like a meta aspect of originals that don't really talk about, like especially like nowadays, like when there's a popular adaptation, you always run the risk of like, if you're actually trying to like learn more about the series, that people are just like talking, and like there's some people that are malicious about like spoiling people in some cases, but like not ever having to worry about that with originals is cool. Like you can literally just like take the brunt of whatever that they're trying to give to you week to week, because like you just don't have to worry about the fact that there's no one that knows what's happening, so it can't get spoiled. Like that shit is dope.
Yeah, it's really annoying when I like was watching the Monogatari series, because I didn't read the light novels ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I watched the anime, and like because of how the anime is, I was like, I have to finish it through the anime, like whenever it comes out. Mm-hmm. And so for years it's just like people are like, hey yo, you want to know who Oshino Oki is? And I'm like, bro, if you say anything, I will murder you. Because it's like, I'm committed, you know? I feel the same way about March Comes In Like a Lion.
Yeah.
I'm like Shaft is my favorite studio because
mm-hmm.
I love how they visually present things. I love like what they do, you know? The sensory overload is my jam.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I want to watch March Comes In Like a Lion as March Comes In Like a Lion, and there are manga readers who are like, yo, and I'm like, bro, I love manga too, but please let me have this.
Right, yeah, let me
it's like,
good.
Oh, it's like fascinating, like the dynamic between like anime and manga, like / light novel, because like we've expressed, like it's always like, oh, if there is an anime adaptation, then there are like risks of being spoiled by manga readers or light novel readers. Mm-hmm. But it's never really true like the other way around. Like say like there's an original anime and it eventually gets like adaptations into other mediums.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is like reading those first and getting spoiled by the anime type.
Yeah,
you know, that type of energy.
True.
And you know, there's like really like no rhyme or reason for like why that happens, other than the fact that like I guess like the anime is like, you know, like because it is like the first one is like it's the one that like people experience like first generally, and they don't experience like, you know, the written form of it as the first thing. And you know, it's just like a less common case where like somebody reads a manga adaptation of an anime first, and you know have this problem, because it doesn't happen really.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, like bro, like just to add some funny little context to this conversation, one day, because I only do like anytime I go on Twitter, I do the 2 scroll rule. I only scroll twice and then I get off of Twitter because Twitter is dog shit. And so one day, someone retweeted a thread onto my timeline where a Chainsaw Man fan was like mad. They were like mad about like, so I guess someone was like comparing it to like some other shonen, of course. And he was like, if y'all keep talking like this, I will literally drop a list of everyone that has died, that is currently dead in Chainsaw Man. I was like, bro, like, how can you be this hateful? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, what is like, what is wrong?
That's like such a toxic way to like get people to like read the manga. It's like, oh man, you better do it for this, otherwise.
Like,
you like have. He's got like a gun to their heads, bro. It's like, you better read them.
What the
Yo,
fuck?
you said this was on Twitter?
Yeah.
Bro, my man doesn't have enough characters for that. Why is he lying?
That's OD, bro.
Maybe he had the beta of Twitter Blue where you could type really long. I could type really long.
You're right. He's paying $8 a month. You're right.
Sounds like a Twitter Blue payer.
Yeah, that's definitely facts. But yeah, it's just like, you know, thankfully I've never been I feel like most spoilers for things definitely come from social media, and most of the time, like, it's not even your fault, because nowadays a lot of the social media outlets will show you content that you don't even like follow. Like, if someone that you follow likes something, sometimes that just ends up on your timeline, even if you have no mutuals with the person. But you know, since I'm not as plugged into social media, because I think that shit is toxic, I usually don't have to worry about spoilers. But there are a lot of people that like still nowadays are like, you know, I was really looking forward to watching this show, but I got spoiled, unfortunately. And like I just, it hurts me. It hurts me so much, because I don't think I've ever been like spoiled on something I really care about really deeply. But bro, that would just really suck, right? Like that just sucks. Like that just really sucks, because like there are special experiences to be had in the medium, and like unfortunately it feels like it is one of the more common mediums to be spoiled in. It's like this and like film, probably. And like people weaponize that shit. It's like, what is wrong with people? I remember when Endgame was coming out, there were people going into Twitch chats and literally just spoiling just because. It's like, bro, get a life. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, I don't know what's wrong with people, but it is what it is. At least we don't have to worry about it with originals, you know? It could be worse. Who's next? Dylan.
Yes.
You want to do your first?
Yeah.
All right. Bet.
Yeah. So from the same minds that brought you Gurren Lagann as Studio Gainax's last really great show, is Kill la Kill. This is probably the biggest show that Trigger's done. It's certainly their tipping point. Beforehand, they had really only done 2 things, which was the Little Witch animation, or Little Witch Academia animation, and what was Inferno Cop. And I do think this is probably the best representation of what Trigger can do and what they can be. Story, it's a bit hard to set up, but we live in this world. There are these clothing with special fibers that give people superpowers, essentially. And so our main character, Ryuko, is trying to combat these superpowered freaks with a suit of her own that has like these special fibers. And it's a very good representation of, I guess, a literal representation of like what freedom is supposed to be and what you can do with it. And it's just very cool. I don't know how else to describe it, but other than very cool. This is like magical girls for like heterosexual men.
That's what's up.
I cannot emphasize this enough. Like, if you didn't want to watch Madoka, this is probably the show for you. there's a lot of gratuitous fan service, but it is very well baked into like the core themes of the show, of where nudity is basically the most base form of freedom you could possibly have in this world. And it just all melds together very, very well. And it's very, very trigger. You know, you get some of the coolest action scenes you've ever seen in your life, and then the next episode you'll get some of the worst clipboard MS Paint animation you've ever seen in your life. It's very peak trigger. It's just a very, very unique experience that you really can't adapt from a manga or any other source.
Yeah, agreed.
One of the ways that because there's one scene I remember like in the very, very beginning of Kill la Kill where I'm like, oh, okay, this is where we're at. Is like one of the characters, Gamagori, when he's literally introduced, the way he's introduced, you can't do that in not anime, because the way they have it is like the door, he his proportions get messed up on purpose to like give the impression that he's like this big imposing guy.
Yeah.
So like he like barely squeezes through the door, and he like enlarges as he enters the room in like a really like fluid, natural way. Like it doesn't look like he's getting bigger. It just the stretch and squish just make him feel massive. And it's just like you don't get that type of like expression from a book giving you words, you know? Like I mean you can, but it's different.
It's it would even be hard to like put on manga panels. It's like because the fluidity is like the big part of like that introduction, right?
There's also like the like small, very stagnated, like small animations that like just really kind of set it apart that you can't really do in manga. Or it just won't have that same effect.
Agreed. Like I mean, like, you know, Kill la Kill is like one of those shows that definitely was talked about a lot at the time when it was out as well, because like, you know, we've all seen plenty of like pure ecchi shows that is like literally the point is to just show you nudity, and that's like one thing. But you know, the thing that sets Kill la Kill apart is that like it's not ecchi for the sake of ecchi, right? It literally does tie into the narrative, like the whole dynamic of, you know, nudity, you know, clothing being oppression, and stuff like that, like ties into its themes, like that it literally in and of itself. Like we make a joke all the time that Kill la Kill in itself is fashion is fascism, and like that's kind of that's like really what it is, right? Like that is how it tells its story. That's how it sets up you know, its character development and everything. And so like it's not one of those shows that just like does it for the sake of it. There is some stuff that is extra, sure, but it's Trigger show, right? So like you kind of expect there to be over the top things, because like Trigger and Gainax have never not been extra. Like they're just kind of the extra studio, just kind of do everything, they turn it up to 12 whenever they can. But I do think like most of the stuff in the show was definitely like it looking back, it's like definitely warranted, because it doesn't have nearly as much impact if it doesn't go as crazy as it does. And boy, let me tell you, it goes absolutely crazy. Like I just don't, there's just like, I don't think I've really experienced a show like this. You know, even though, you know, it came out in like 2013, I think, right? I still don't think I've seen a show like Kill la Kill yet. Like I don't think I've found something that is quite like this. And like, you know, that's like kind of like me personally, like that's kind of like what I'm looking to experience in the medium. Like I'm always looking for like something that gives me something that I've never experienced before. And like, so for that reason, like Kill la Kill definitely has a really, really special place, you know, in my anime watching tenure. I don't think we'll get another show quite like this, because one, I think only Trigger or Gainax could do it, and two, like I don't think there'll be any more from this show anymore. I think it is just straight up done. Like I don't think there'll be any more after. So it's like kind of it's complete, and I think what they were looking to accomplish was both really cool and also executed pretty well overall. I definitely I kind of got smacked in the face by like what they were trying to do, because like I think if you like kind of boil it down to like for simplicity's sake. Like it's kind of like a revenge story. Or like, you know, Ryuko's journey to like find out about her father and like all that stuff, right? Like when we've seen that done before, but we've never seen it done like this. Like it is just so out there. It is so out there, and like a lot of the love that they give to a lot of the characters in terms of like the way their animation is done is like really cool. Like he talked about Gamagori, obviously. Like Mako just has like, I feel like they had an animator specifically for Mako. Like she just is always doing something that I'm just like, what is happening? Like what is actually going on? She kind of like warps the physics of the show completely, and very funny all the while doing it. And it establishes a good balance between, you know, comedy when it wants to be serious, and like even though, you know, there are characters that are literally walking around naked, there are definitely points in the show where you can take it very seriously, and there is very much still substance there, despite, you know, you think a show that has this much nudity would just be for entertainment's sake, but I do think there's like some compelling narrative there mixed in.
That part of it is like really funny, because like one of like the most like common and honestly like, you know, reasonable criticisms of anything with like fan service is that like it doesn't serve any purpose other than, you know, the implied it's just here for fan service. But like in the case of like Kill la Kill, like it ties like that aspect into like its like thematic identity, and it's really like, you know, inseparable from like what the show wants to do. And like just like even just like talking about that is like so fucking absurd that they're able to like justify like the amount of like nudity that they show throughout like the series, and how like it's like completely like, I'm not gonna call it natural because like, you know, the show is like very very extra, but like it doesn't feel out of place at all. It feels like it belongs in this show. And like, you know, taking this opportunity to like talk about like Trigger and like Gainax like just as a whole, like these are like two studios who are pretty much like known for their original projects, and very few studios can like say that for themselves, because like most studios produce adaptations or produce originals like here and there every so often, but like when it comes to like Gainax of the past and Trigger in the present, it's pretty much like 95% originals like from them. And like I think that's like very, there's like power in that, because like Trigger has a very like signature style when it comes to animation. It's like really like unmistakable. I remember like watching like the Trigger documentary that like came out like a couple months ago, and like people, and like it was a very like well put together documentary, but like one thing I found interesting about it was like they interviewed like a lot of like fans who like seem to be like more on like the casual side of fans, but they always like associated like Trigger with like a style that is that cannot be associated with anything other than anime. Like this is like anime to them, and I think like, wow, that's like really cool. That, like,
that is really cool.
Trigger is able to like make things that is literally impossible to make in other mediums that are not anime. I think like that's like a hallmark of an amazing like original show, and a studio that is able to consistently like produce original works like they can, you know?
No, there's definitely a reason we hold this studio in such high regard. Even to this day, they don't do an overwhelming volume of works, but like pretty much every time they put something out, I'm like, okay, I gotta watch this. Like this is, I don't know what the hell they're gonna do. I have no clue, and that is exciting. That is, I have no fucking clue what crazy ass thing they're about to put in front of me. But you know, they more often than not deliver. And I think even like isn't Inferno Cop like getting like rebooted or something?
Yes, second season. Let's go.
It's like, bro, it's
I
like,
need shit post the show.
It's like we really just never know what the hell they're gonna do to us, bro. But definitely so valued when we talk about like studios that define a medium. And you know, Kill la Kill, like definitely, I want to say like it is. Like at least like it's probably the show that like hit the mainstream the hardest, right? Like from them.
Yeah, I mean, like, it really was like, you know, like Dylan said, other than like Inferno Cop and like the very first Little Witch Academia, kind of like mini movie type thing. This was like their first like full like TV series, and like I think it was like the first thing from them that was like led by Imaishi. So it definitely like had eyes on it because of the staff that was working on it, because like Trigger was like, if it wasn't obvious already, it was made of like former Gainax employees. So that's where the connection lies between the two studios. And yeah, like honestly, like this, I think Dylan said it the best. Like this is like a like almost like a perfect like show to like demonstrate like the appeal of Trigger. Yeah. For anyone who hasn't experienced the studio before.
I'm personally like, and this is the last thing I'll say on it, I'm really thankful that we live in the timeline where Gainax is no more, but like people from Gainax decided to form another studio and keep doing what they did, because there are definitely timelines where Gainax is done and that's just it. Like we don't get anything more from there.
They shut her up like Manglobe.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like there's a timeline where like we just never get anything from them again, and like that, I do think like what they bring to the table is so incredibly valued. Like even if we're talking about like modern shows, right? Like most of us watch Gridman, I'm pretty sure. I didn't get to watch the follow-up Dynazenon, but I heard good things about it, and I'm sure most of you out there watch Cyberpunk, right? Most of you out there probably watch Cyberpunk, and most of you all would probably venture to say you probably liked Cyberpunk. And like we don't get shows like that if they decide, once this Gainax thing is over, we're just done. And speaking of Gridman and Dynazenon, like they're both getting movie follows. Did you see that?
It's like it's gonna be like a universe type team up movie.
Okay, I see. I was like, bro, what the fuck? And then like, obviously we talked about Inferno Cop 2, and we have Panty and Stocking 2 as well, which is like,
I legitimately never thought this would ever happen.
What timeline are we in? It's incredible.
Like Madoka with like their 10th anniversary, I could first feasibly see like, it's left open ended.
Yeah,
you could do it, but with the way Panty and Stocking ended, it was like this is a Gainax ending, and you're just gonna have to accept it. Yep. And then they dropped this on us 15 years later, and you're like, oh, okay, cool.
That's the. But yeah, definitely an incredible show. Definitely check it out. It's 20. It's a little bit longer. It's 24, and then this OVA, I'm pretty sure it's canon, and so pretty much 25 episodes, which is a pretty good length for a binge. So definitely check it out if you haven't already. But moving on to Jeffrey's first show. And man, I'm sure he has a lot to say about this one.
I'll keep it a little bit more brief because this is a show that like if you've watched us probably needs no introduction. Like the short 30-second version of that introduction is that like Lycoris Recoil is an original project produced at A1 Pictures, directed by Shingo Adachi, who's most notably the character designer and chief animation director on the Sword Art Online franchise, and this is his directorial debut. And I've spoken about the show in a lot of different contexts before, but as an original, I have before, but diving more into that. So the reason I wanted to bring up Lycoris Recoil in the context of talking about original anime is that it's the process of making that what makes this interesting to me.
Yep.
Which is a different angle than just watching the show, kind of like the shows that we talked about before. If you just watch Kill la Kill, you can kind of see the appeal of and how original it is. But with this one, it's more so knowing the creative process is what makes it noteworthy to me as an original anime. And speaking on that, so for those of you who don't know, this project was pitched at Aniplex. They have all sorts of things cooking up at that conglomerate, I suppose, and
distribution company.
No, it is the conglomerate.
And so the roots of this project was they were really rough. They built the setting and the very general narrative structure from nothing. They brought on a writer Ashura, and that's kind of where this series got its beginnings, with girls and guns and such, and this kind of fake utopian type of setting. But other than that, when the project was greenlit, there really wasn't much other than that going for it. And they didn't even like name a director until like they had a lot of important aspects of it established. And so like Shingo Adachi was like brought on, and he was kind of like he had a lot of like work dumped on his lap. He was like, okay, like I need to like steer this project in a direction that I feel is going to be the best for this anime. And it's like this process that's like really like fascinating to me because like I said, like one of like the coolest parts about original anime is that, you know, without any pre-existing source material or without needing to abide by the principles of any other medium, you can kind of cater your creative energy to crafting something that is for anime. And like I think Lycoris Recoil is like a good representation of that idea because if you've heard me talk about the show at all, you've heard me talk about like the character acting and how I think it's its greatest asset as a show. And I'm not going to say that you can't do like character acting in other like visual mediums like manga. Like obviously, like, you know, artists out there are pretty like amazing at their craft, and they're able to accomplish things that like we can't imagine, you know, ourselves. But when it comes to like anime, like that is like one of the aspects of anime that I appreciate the most. It's able to depict humans, you know, like humans, like having the understanding of like how humans like audibly and visibly express themselves, and you know, that establishes your connection to the characters, like to the story, like to the world that the creators like want to create for you. And like you can like read about this. Like there's a really good article on Sakura blog that talks about like the inner workings and like the conceptual phases of this show. But you know, the TLDR is that like, you know, they had very little to like work with, like by the time that they knew that they had to like, you know, finish this project by a certain date. But like, you know, due to like the efforts of like the key staff members, like, you know, Shingo Adachi and all of like the individual like script writers and like animators, like they're able to like steer this into something that really hit it off with its now established fans. And I want to like bring that point up again. Like, you know, one of like the biggest like, you know, plights of original anime is that they do not have an existing audience. And so things like, you know, word of mouth marketing become like a lot harder to like, you know, like have as an asset, because who's going to talk about your thing if they don't know about it, you know?
Yeah.
They don't have like the benefit of like, oh, this manga sold like 1 million copies, and obviously people like know about it, and it's getting an adaptation, and people are going to watch it because people know it's good.
Yeah.
They do not have any of that going for it, and I think it's like it's something like really special when an original, like by the end of its run, like has a very passionate fan base. I feel like that's very rare that happens. And but like in the case of like Lycoris Recoil, like people love the show, and like, you know, myself included, like with how much I talked about it in like the past year, and so much to the point where like, man, like when the new anime project got announced, like I was elated. It's like I was actually like, you know, like my face lit up. I'm like, dude, let's fucking go. If you didn't know already, this anime is getting a sequel project. We don't know what that's going to be, whether it's a second season or a film or whatnot, but we are getting more of it. And just like, you know, I know like Khalil, like, you're not into like anti-Twitter like that, and like I'm not.
Bro,
I'm not
fuck
either.
anti-Twitter. He's like,
yeah.
They bullied the staff into making a second part.
I kind of just like absorb some like random anti-Twitter stuff like through like osmosis, like scrolling through. But like whenever like people are like talking about the show, like it's like it's awesome how much people like speak positively about the show, considering like how little it had going for it, like from its like announcement to when, you know, we actually got it, you know. Like I feel like it's some kind of miracle that people even like checked out the show and, you know, stuck with it to, you know, to the very end. And yeah, like that's it's a really like cool original experience for like something that like is not like overtly obvious, you know.
Agreed.
Yeah, dude, I love this show.
This one's also recent for those of you who have not checked this one out. It's very recent. And it's just like it's just a lot of really cool pieces to the show. One of the things that I think are like pretty unique to an anime original is like I really like the way that they depict Chisato's fighting style. I think is like really cool because like it is very unorthodox, and it's really based on like movement and fluid motion. And once again, that's like something that is really represented much more in an animated setting, more so than like if it were like a manga or something like that, or like if it was a light novel, you wouldn't really get the full grasp of like what they're trying to tell you. But you don't have that problem here because you get to see it all in fluid motion, with and there's no bounds, right? They just kind of get to express themselves, express her style the way that they see it in their heads. And so like I thought that was really cool because like even the characters in the show think that she's a little bit of a weirdo when it comes to the way she fights. And like I could see that, right? Like even if I didn't have that context from the other characters in the show, like as I look at her action scenes, I'm like, oh, okay, like this is exactly what they mean. Like that makes sense. Like there's something different about this one, and I think that's really cool, from an expressive standpoint.
One of the coolest things like anime, like not even just like original anime, but anime in general can do is like it's like the show don't tell concept where like you do not have to be spoon-fed like information about like certain characters or certain plot points if you can like depict it through the audio visuals. And I feel like anime that have that as like a core value are the ones that like really stand out in my mind, and the ones that I remember, and the ones that I will like pinpoint like this is like the best that anime can has to offer.
Yeah, for sure. It's like why we watch anime, right? Like that's like the whole point in and of itself. Like the reason that we love this medium to the point where we're willing to do multi-hour podcasts for you guys so often is because like there's something that it brings to the table that we think can't be really brought by any other outlet. And like originals are like kind of that in its purest form. Like it only has the special things about the medium to go off of. It does not stand on any other merits aside from itself, and so like it when it's executed well, it's just like a really beautiful and cool thing to see. And so there are flops out there, but we don't talk about those. This is not one of them, so we don't have to go into that. It just be like that. But yeah, this was a show that was in a lot of people's conversation for anime of the year last year, and for good reason. Like it definitely was in the top cut, pretty much no matter who you asked. And for good reason, and a lot of the reasons that it was able to do what it did so well is because it did not have to abide by anything else aside from the vision of the people behind it, and their ideas all coming together despite some turbulence in how things are brought together. But sometimes pressure makes diamonds, what I'm saying? Like sometimes that little bit of shakeup is exactly what you need to really create something of quality, and they definitely handled it beautifully. And so once again, we'll be waiting with bated breath to see what they have next for us. And we don't know what it's going to be, but I will definitely be watching the moment it comes up. So I can't be mad at that.
Same here.
All right. So next, we're going to talk about, and as I'm looking, I'm like, man, Gainax is really goated because like, bro, like they're really goated because like I'm looking at some of our collectives and I'm like, wow, that's three. That's already like, how many Gainax shows do we have on this? Like, there's quite a few. And this one, I think this one is probably, like, I don't know, I now that I think about it, like, it's kind of hard sometimes to pin down, an order of popularity for Gainax shows because a lot of them are like so out there that like you're gonna have people that have cult followings for each, for sure, and so some cases I feel like it's just like a matter of preference. And others, it's like sometimes it's difficult to find out like just which ones were like more impactful than the others. But like Gurren Lagann is like, bro, it is just like, once again, like Gainax is the only the only people on the planet that I think could have done this show. Like they're the only people that I could see in my mind like pulling off something like this. And once again, we must return with the giant robots. We must come back with the giant robots.
Course,
we have
bro.
to. We have to.
Facilitate really cool ideas. If people don't like the ideas or themes presented, they at least have giant robots beating each other in the face to fall back onto.
True. Any truers in chat?
I am a truer. Yeah, like talking about like Gurren Lagann, like I feel like the first thing that like comes to mind is that like when people like talk about the show, like I feel like the energy and like the raw hype this show brings is what defines anime as a medium for a lot of people. Like people, like the characters are like screaming their heads off, like shouting, like absolutely shouting like these inspirational quotes at each other. And you know, obviously the giant robots fighting each other is, you know, a Gainax signature. And you know, all that on paper, it seems like, you know, the show is like, or if you just gave me like the raw data of like what the show was, I'd pretty much say like, oh yeah, that's like a show. It's like, you know, run of the mill. Like I've seen something like this before, type of energy. But watching it is a completely like different experience. Like that is like almost indescribable without just showing
actually
it to
watching
you,
it.
know?
Yeah.
And dude, like I remember like the first time like watching this show, it was like, you know, pretty early on in my anime watching tenure, and I'm just like, bro, like I was like, this is it. Like this is like where all my energy is like gonna come from for like the next like year or some shit. it's just me like screaming to myself like, who the hell do you think I am?
It's like there's something cool about the fact that this show is like X amount of episodes and it doesn't feel like it's dragged on too long or anything like that. Like a lot
long in comparison,
yeah, like a lot of other series in general, like outside of anime, like they're serialized, and so it's like they just keep going until they stop. But I feel like because of like the constraint of like the episodes, like they had a better idea of how to pace this show, because like a lot of stuff happens in Gurren Lagann.
Oh, bro.
Where it's like the beginning is nothing like the middle, which is nothing like the end. And it's like, I mean, it's similar, but you know, the spiral, bro. It just gets bigger. The scale is absolutely ridiculous, but it doesn't feel like it's like out of nowhere. It feels organic, you know. And it's also because they tie into like the character development and all of that. So it's like, it just feels like that. It's like a perfect hodgepodge of just stuff, and so it's there's something, you know, it feels like too perfectly crafted for it to be anything other than Gainax and anything other than it.
Yeah, for sure. And also, like, you know, obviously, I gotta believe that like those people out there that have like kind of like anime crushes, I feel like Yoko was on that list for a long time for people. Like I mean, its characters are like, I love their character designs and Gurren Lagann in general. And like there's so much just visual appeal, like audio visual appeal, of like everything that they do. Like at some points it even feels like, you know, it could be like sensory overload because there's just so much going on. Once you're like, bro, what is happening to my body right now? What is going on? But that's with reason, right? Like it's definitely very intentional, and very very necessary to the way that things like kind of ramp up. It's like, you know, things get from 0 to 100, and things they like you were talking about the scale. Like the scale just gets like so large at one point, but it doesn't feel like, you know, one episode you're at 0 and the next one you're at 100. There is pacing here, and there is a very very continuous way that they do ramp things up over time. It's just that, you know, it's Gainax at the end of the day, so like they're gonna do some shit that's over the top. Like that has never not been a thing. Like they'll always find a way to do something that is super extra, but it's not one of those things where like they're just doing it for the sake of doing it. I think they're doing it with a very, very important reason in mind. And so like, you know, obviously this show has a lot of like very known quotables and stuff as well, like a lot of impactful scenes and whatnot. And like I think that's just kind of the nature of like what Gainax looks to bring to the table. It's like the way that they choose to impact, they also want to accompany it with like very, very over the top visuals and very, very exaggerated, you know, character moments and monologues and quotables and all that stuff. And I think it's so cool because like we said, like there's shows that are kind of like Gurren Lagann, but like have any of them ever taken it to the same extent? Probably not. Even to this day, there are shows that try to emulate, but in my experience, most of the shows that like take heavy inspiration from Gurren Lagann have not been able to stand up to it in the same manner. So definitely one of the more important originals out there, and it's like another very, very popular one, right? Like it is definitely one that breached into the mainstream as well, and that's like so cool, right? That's such a cool thing. Like when there's an original that is able to break into mainstream, right? That's a hard thing to do. That's a really, really difficult thing to do. But this one definitely is like that. Like pretty much everyone will know this show by name. Maybe not everyone will have seen it, but they will definitely know what it is at the very least, and that in and of itself just speaks testaments to, you know, Gainax just doing the damn thing out here, day in and day out. They just
I was on like a binge recently watching like a bunch of like Disney cartoons like that are like the new age Disney cartoon stuff, like Amphibia, the Owl House, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, bro, Gurren Lagann's making its way into these shows.
Right.
Like not like just overt references. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, all the fucking the Western animators, dude, they're all anime fans.
That's like so cool. Like that's so fucking cool. Like that's so cool. Cause like
Simon's drill just shows up in a background. I'm like, oh okay, that's just there.
Yeah, it's like, you know, that's something that to us would have been like unheard of. Like, you know, 10 years ago, right? That was not a thing. Like that was not, like, at least not anywhere nearly to the same scale. Like anime was still something that was like very, very niche, and like even in some cases, like there was stigma, right? There was stigma associated with it. Like, you watch that shit, what a weirdo, like why would you do that? And now we live in a world where like, yeah, there are like other forms of media like film, you know, TV shows, Western animated series that like, yeah, like definitely just like make straight up like, oh, this is from this, and you're like, wait a minute, did they just, what? Oh yeah, they, what? Oh, okay, that's what's up. Well, it's like, it's like, it's like that was not even like remotely possible, I think, 10 years ago. And so like we kind of live in the golden age of anime for sure, because like we got to see both sides, right? We got to see when it was super niche, like nobody wanted to watch that shit. Get the fuck away from me, you stupid weeb, right? We got to see that era. And we also get to see the current era where everyone like kind of watches. Like there's just a ton more people that watch, and it's like super normalized now. Like they're like, oh, did you see that new episode of X show? It's like, yeah, no, absolutely, that shit was so, like, you know, people love to say this nowadays. They're like, that was peak, bro. That was, yeah, that shit was peak.
Oh my
I was
lord.
like, right, that's like what everyone says nowadays. It's like, this was not a thing. This is not a thing before. And so like, you know, it's pretty cool that we got to this place. So yeah, I definitely it's also, you know, a little bit of warm fuzzies off of that one. It's like pretty sick. It was
yeah. Gainax has made like a lot of like, you know, shows that like, you know, the anime industry wouldn't be like the same without them. But like, I'm talking about like Gurren Lagann, like this is like, I think like where like their influence like has like stemmed from the most, because like, you know, this carries like the same spirit that like got transferred to like Trigger, and we're still seeing it like, you know, nowadays, like the same like, you know, type of like, you know, balls to the wall, like commit to the bit energy that this show brought to the table is still like living on in you know, Trigger, and you know, the people who like are trying to like, you know, emulate that same type of energy as well. It all comes from this show, and obviously like this is like not like, you know, the first like show that like had like, you know, hype and like being like very like inspiring as like its main thing, but like this one hits different. And then like I consider myself like not really like a monkey brain like type of like when it comes to like consuming media, And I've been like called before, like, oh, like I don't understand like hype or whatnot. Like, oh, I can't get excited for when
people say that.
This guy, like you know, cranks things up to like 11, like his power level is like over 9,000 type of energy. And I'm just like, bro, like, and like I've said like, oh man, like people really need to like understand like why things are like enjoyable, and like I understand why things are enjoyable, but like when it comes to a show like this, I feel like it's almost impossible to like, you know, resist the urge to like feel the same energy the characters do and the creators put into the show.
True.
It's really infectious, and you know, like I'm getting a little nostalgia like talking about it too.
Yeah.
Like, it's been years since I watched this show. Maybe I should give it another.
Yeah, we got to give some of these classics rewatches for sure.
Honestly, so I might be breaking the formula here when I say this, because I mean I almost feel like we should just go to the next show that's like Evangelion.
Yeah, sure.
Because
show.
You were saying like you feel like Gurren Lagann's the most influential show put out by Gainax, but I almost feel like it's in tandem with Evangelion in terms of like Evangelion broke like the genre in terms of like what anime can do, and then like it's almost like if you put Evangelion and Gurren Lagann next to each other, they're nothing alike. Like, and yet they're so similar, yet nothing alike.
Yeah,
it's.
I said the thing that we were going to talk about like Eva eventually, and like I'm just saying like there's like more like of that energy, like especially like in Trigger, which is like, you know, Gainax is a successor in spirit.
Oh, of course. It's just interesting because I feel like it's hard for Gurren Lagann to have had the impact that it did if it wasn't for Evangelion. And the reason is because this show like took the mecha genre of like, yo, look at all of this like amazing technology that we have. Look at like whatever and all the political conflict. And it turned it into like one of the most like personal stories probably in anime.
Yeah. And
so it's like it made this whole like, I guess, doomer movement like kind of spur where it's like anime is talking about like this character who's like is like deeply depressed and whatever, and it's just like it's so dark and edgy, and it's supposed to be a kid show, by the way.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be a kid
that's
show.
Crazy to think about, right? Like that, like what?
Yeah, but it's like, but like years later, they come through with Gurren Lagann and are like, "Hey guys, I know that we fucked up anime we made anime all dark and sad and gritty for a few years, but listen, guys, we can be happy too."
The show also kind of fucked up the discourse surrounding like female characters for like the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Like I'm not just
right.
like female characters, but like like shows with multiple female characters in it.
Waifu wars.
Irreplicable damage, bro.
Yeah. Like we'll never recover from this.
Damn it, they made not one good character, but like 4? Come on, dude.
How dare they?
It also blew up like a whole bunch of character tropes. I cannot think of like any tsundere before Asuka.
Yeah.
Uncle from Another World is a different show without Evangelion.
True. Like Evangelion is like it's so iconic in so many different facets, right? Like we talked about, you know, the way it represents character tropes, you know, the way that it brings it, the way it tells its story, like all these things are like so important, right? But then there's also like other things like its opening, right? And like we talk about like how its opening like kind of changed openings forever, right? There's like so many things that I think this show does all at once, and like this show is like, it's like 26, 27 years old at this point. It's older than me. It's like it's literally older than me. And you know, despite that fact, like it's still to this day like one of the most impactful anime of all time, I think. Like it has to be like in the top 5 somewhere at least. Like Eva like kind of changed things forever. And we still see with modern shows to this day, not only just reference, but like true inspiration, from these characters. And you know, it's thematic presence like that. We still see that to this day with shows, even by stuff that's like not mecha. Like obviously mecha in and of itself is like polarizing nowadays, but even on shows that aren't mecha, we can still see like, oh yeah, you know, like that's very Eva, the way that they chose to do this, or that character, you know, seems like it would fit in with this cast very well based on the bridges that we know from the show. And it's just like it's like crazy that can be the case, because in that 20 something years, right, there's been so much quality put out. Like we know this, like there's been so much stuff that has been put out that has changed the medium, but this show is like ever present. Like Eva is always there, and people still talk about it to this day despite it being 27, 28 years old, which is insane, right? Because amongst all the discourse, well, all the big, you know, obviously we have a ton of big shonens, we have like non-shonens, we have like the super popular shows like Spy X Family, right? Like those are shows that people talk about all the time, but like the small amount of anime discourse that I choose to view, because fuck any Twitter, it's like I still see people bring up Eva, and I still see people compare things to Eva, and they talk about it whenever they're talking about classics, when they're talking about, like, you know, I actually saw a conversation where people were talking about how like their last like 4 years of anime has just been like ridiculous in terms of quality, and like we've witnessed this, right? Like we've seen some really incredible stuff come out. And you know what? I found this one guy in the thread that was like, you know, ever since I watched Eva, I've been looking for something to fill that void. Like, and I was like, damn, bro, that's like so cool, because you know there has been great quality for sure, and there's also been shows that you know have tried to directly emulate Eva's success, Darling in the Franxx, and to way lesser impact, I would say. But one thing I think is always like true whenever we talk about the show is that like it will never go away, right? It will never ever go away, and you know, thankfully, like it's not like we've been, you know, content droughted for 28 years. You know, so some of the other content put out, aside from the original, you know, anime series, has also been quite quality as well, which is like super cool, because we've also experienced shows that, you know, the original that they put out is like good, but like maybe they kind of bastardize it with some of the follow-up content that they do, and then you create that weird divide with people. It's like, I really love this series, but man, they really should have just ended it wherever they did, you know what I mean? Like that conversation will like always come up with a few different shows. But you know, I think we had a cast where we talked about 3.0 plus 1, right? Like didn't we have that?
It's come up in passing, but we've never like really like focused in on it, and like that's kind of like an angle that like we I kind of like wanted to take today. It's like talking about like Eva in the context of it is a like fully original project. Like obviously it's had like a bunch of like spin-offs and like adaptations and such, but like obviously like the anime came first, and is what most people like experience the series through. And like the way that like this series has evolved, like in like even like through its original 26 episode run, like you can kind of like, okay, if you haven't seen Eva, we're not gonna spoil anything. We're gonna like do our best to like work around it. But like talking about like certain aspects about Eva, like if you like don't know, it's like kind of like we kind of can't bring it up in conversations without talking about a few things. So like
that's fine.
Like just the impact that like the TV series had on, you know, what you can show on television was immense. Like we really like cannot undersell this. Like it, like Eva, like in its early phases, like kind of like poses itself as like, you know, a kaiju of the week type of show. And that's like what people like thought they were getting into. Obviously, like there's always like, you know, themes like ruminating in the background, like as even like when it appears to be like this monster of the week type deal, but you know, at a certain point you realize that like, man, like this is getting like really like psychologically compelling on like anything else that like came before it. And like that type of like storytelling really paved the way for so many shows to like be shown until, because like, man, some of the stuff that they show you like in like the later parts of Eva, the TV series, like I could not imagine like, you know, waking up on like a Saturday morning wanting to watch my mech show and then seeing that on the screen type of energy. It is really crazy in that regard. And like some of the things that happen like later, like I think most people know like of like the budget constraints that Eva suffered in like its like last like 2-ish episodes. And that kind of like shows like, you know, again, the plight of like original anime. It's like, you know, back then, like when resources weren't as like plentiful, you know?
Yeah.
You kind of had to like do a lot of like managing. Like there was like a lot of like planning ahead that like you had to, that you were responsible for, and that you couldn't rely on like existing material in order to like adapt. And it really the cracks really showed, and you can kind of like, in a way, you can kind of see like the human aspect of it, the human aspect of anime through those last like 2-ish episodes, where like, yeah, like people make this, like we have to like hand draw everything, we need to like conceptualize everything, we need people who like understand like how mechs move, how characters move and shit, and if we don't have that, then our series is going to suffer in a way.
I mean,
go ahead.
It's one of the most overt cases of like they didn't know how to end this, you know, to the point where they had to re-end it 2 other times.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just, in terms of original anime, like this is a show that's product of circumstance that can't be recreated. You know, like you can't, there's no source material to follow. Like, I mean, like there's Promise Neverland season 2. I guess that exists. Because there was a source material, they had to attempt to follow it to probably the worst degree that anyone could have asked for.
I know Ghoul fans weren't very happy with, was it Route A?
But even in the case of Evangelion, there are people who still argue for the anime ending, for the series ending.
Me!
And so it's like, it's just kind of like, wow, you know, like, which ending of Evangelion is the one that you personally feel fits best? You know, it's like there's an argument for 3. That's insane. Like you don't, for Promise Neverland season 2, everyone will just say, "Well, just look at the manga," you know. And in the case of Evangelion, it's like, well, I mean, what is your choice? It's just your own opinion, really.
Yeah.
Like the journey that like Eva has like gone through from its TV series to like its first movie that tried to like retcon the ending to the entire like rebuild series is like something that can only happen in original anime. Because like, you know, I think like we need to like bring up like the director, like Hideaki Anno. Like this is really like this is his magnum opus, like, you know, like inarguably like this is like in a lot of ways like his story, like his life story, and like the way it's like kind of evolved like from its inception to like the very like last thing that happened, which was like, you know, Thrice Upon Time, the final rebuild film, kind of shows his, you know, his own journey, like with his like, you know, his mental health and, you know, how he was feeling at different phases of his life. And I think like that type of thing is like really powerful and something that like you can't do if you are trying to like abide by like strict boundaries of like existing material.
Like there are things that there's a level of expression that you can't get when you know, you're bound by source material. Like it kind of let him as a director, right? And this is something so cool. It kind of let him as a director and an original creator like pour his whole self into his work. And like you don't get that. Like you just don't get that unless it's original, because, you know, he's allowed to impact he's allowed to impact his art in a way that he sees fit, in a way that is reflective, and a way that changes over time, right? Obviously, the way he was feeling back whenever the original series is airing is different than, you know, the rebuild and whatnot. Like that's like something so cool. And like if it was something where, you know, this existed as a written medium first, and you know you have to go 1-to-1 adaptation or get it as close as possible, you don't get that variation, right? From a directorial standpoint. And so like, yeah, I definitely agree. That's like super cool. Also, it's like really funny how like it's the year 2015. You know, this is now 8 years ago, but yeah, no, I think that's really cool. And like that's like kind of the raw perspective that we look for when we talk about originals. It's like kind of that unfiltered expression from, you know, the staff. Not just the director in some cases. Sometimes it comes from, you know, the animator. Sometimes it comes from, you know, the storyboarders and whatnot. But in and of itself, like, definitely cannot see this show being done in any other way aside from original. And that turbulence, that experience throughout time, like kind of adds to its story in a way. And I think that's really cool. Like it is not one of those things where, you know, the troubles that it experienced throughout time kind of take away from its impact. In some ways, I feel like it adds to it because it is that expression of the director and all the struggles that they went through. And like, even though all these years later, you know, all these years later, like even I know there's another version of the movie coming out soon. I think it's in March, if I remember correctly. Oh yeah.
I think it's a re-release.
It's just the home media release. Okay. Yeah. But they still did like the second release that had like extra scenes and shit like that. Like that's so cool, right? Like isn't that so dope? And like also like I cannot remember an anime film I've watched that has been this long. I don't think I've ever seen an anime film this long before.
Haruhi.
Oh yeah.
Haruhi was just like an entire arc just shoved into a movie.
That's true. There's not many though. It's like
not many. No.
There's definitely not many that are hitting 2.5 hour marks. And it's like it's not like it's for no reason, right? And that in and of itself is like, okay, there's a lot to say here. There's like we have a lot of stuff that we need to cover. And yeah, no, Eva as a collective, I think will definitely go down in history. Like it'll never be wiped from the books. Like people talk about anime 100 years from now, right? They're still gonna talk about Eva. It doesn't.
Hideki Anno will make a new rebuild.
No, he's done. I think he's he's satisfied with it.
I think he's found his self-actualization finally after 2 decades.
After 2 decades, he's finally.
Isn't that so sick that like 2 decades later he can confidently say like, okay, it's where I wanted it to be. Like that's so cool. Like that.
It took him.
It took so much, bro. Like
it took him 9 years, but he finally ended Eva the way he wanted it.
Yeah. People will like look at like the content of like Eva like in a vacuum, and they might get like kind of frustrated, like, oh my god, which is like the real ending, and that like, oh my god, Asuka or Rei or whatnot. Like, who are like what type of anime watcher are you?
What even is the story about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like I think like the real like artistic merits of Eva come out like when it's like external story, tying it to like Hideaki Anno and kind of like seeing like the struggles that he has gone through, and also like I guess like a lot of people have gone through, because like like Gainax is like now defunct, so like like continuing like Eva like through Gainax was like impossible. And so like Anno and like the staff members like on his team like had to like look elsewhere in order to like make this story a reality. And I feel like there's like the both like the journey within Eva and outside of Eva is just like so fascinating when you like pair them together. I can like it's not something that I can imagine happening in not anime,
yeah,
like
certainly
like,
not.
like studio changes can't really happen to like the same degree. The ambition to like change your established story based on your own feeling because you are the creator is not something that happens pretty much ever. Because like there's a lot of like fan outcry whenever this stuff happens, like, oh my god, you're like tarnishing my experience type of thing. But like this is like the creator's vision. You have to like respect that. Like that's something that you have to make an effort to understand, and you have to know that this is an experience that is crafted from people who want to tell like a story that no one else knows and no one else can say or can tell. And I think that's something that is powerful and irreplicable to a degree.
Eva's fucking dope, man. What an amazing series.
Yeah.
But
remember when that politician posted an Evangelion meme?
Oh yeah. Oh,
so funny.
oh god. Make it stop, bro. Keep these old men out of my anime, please. even though this show is older than me. It'd be like that. But so next we're gonna talk about robots, but not in the same way. So my next show that I wanted to bring up on the lineup of originals was Vivy. And Vivy is a show that was pretty recent as well. It's 2021. And the most important thing to know about Vivy is that I think it's like way more impactful of a show than people might think. And the reason that I say that is because Vivy was really the first original project that WIT did after they gave up, or after they like kind of found what they were looking for, right? Like we talk about how WIT over time, kind of started out by getting their name with, Titan. We all talk about Titan. Everyone loves to talk about Attack on Titan, right? And, WIT started with Titan and they ended up giving it up. They gave it up to MAPPA. And the first response of everyone was like, why would you give up Titan? Like, obviously Titan is such a massive series. It's one of the most popular in the medium. It has been for the last 10 years. Obviously, it's very lucrative as well to keep putting out. That's why they keep putting out Final Season 3.0 times 2 over 2 days.
Part 1,
what is it?
Part 2.
The final chapter prologue. But yeah, so like, and so like obviously Titan is something that's very impactful, and also it's a big money making opportunity. And so for WIT to say, that's not the direction we want to go, because obviously they see the things that we see in terms of how much money it brings in and how much people love the series. But even despite that, they were able to say, that's not the direction we want to go anymore. And so they gave up Titan to their best friends at MAPPA, and they decided we're going to start making the stuff that we wanted to make. And Vivy is really like the first show that kind of represents like the way that WIT wants to do its storytelling and the way it wants to create art. And man, it is just an incredible ride. It is obviously there's a lot of social commentary in the show in and of itself. As time goes on, the concept of AI becomes more and more relevant. Like obviously you guys have seen stuff about like ChatGPT and like, how AI is becoming more and more advanced as time goes on, right? It is commentary on that, and like how AI becomes more progressed, and like at what point do we call something human, right? At what time do we say that this is a living being, with a conscience and that type of value, as opposed to being inhuman? Like it kind of blurs the line between what is sentience, and it does its narrative so well. I really love the characters. I really love the setting. I think in terms of an original, like, there were things that they did in this show that they definitely could not have done in written formats, like the hyper realistic shots they do when they zoom in on a character and you like really get to see that, while this character is very human, like our main character is very, very human in the way that she expresses herself, but she is still an AI at the end of the day, right? And like that, I feel like that gets lost because she's such a good character that you forget, like you actually will just forget that, like, oh yeah, like Vivy is an AI at the end of the day, but she's so much more human than so many other shows, so many other characters and so many other shows. And it just does that. It does that so well. It establishes like such a diverse cast of, both humans and AI. It has like great action scenes. I think it has great setting, great animation. Like it just like WIT really I'm so glad that like Wit was able to find that this is what they decided, they decided to go with, like, because I'm sure that was not an easy decision for them to be like, we're just not gonna do Attack on Titan anymore. Like, who can make that decision easily, right? But if this is the type of stuff, right? Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, if this is the type of quality and this is the type of show that we're gonna be getting from Wit, as a result of them giving up Titan, I'm really glad they gave up Titan. Like, and they have been like putting out absolutely standout stuff ever since they gave up Titan as well. So I think it's a good timeline. I think it's a good timeline, and this show was a show that we held in very high regard in 2021. Like, in my opinion, like, this was in the running for best of the year in 2021. But it was also one of those shows that not everyone watched in 2021. But I'm really glad that we stumbled upon this one. I say stumbled as if like we weren't gonna watch a Witch show anyway. We definitely were, but I don't know if we knew that it was gonna be like this, right? Like, I don't think we quite knew. And I'm really glad it was like this. I still find myself, I did go back and rewatch, and man, it is just really, really quality stuff through and through. And they even went back and gave it written adaptation too. I didn't get to read these yet, because they did do a manga and a light novel for it. But yeah, in terms of anime originals, man, oof, such a great ride.
Yeah, nobody else is like gonna like have this opinion, but like, if you asked me like what I feel like is like the most defining like show from Wit that like, best showcase like what the studio can do, I would say it's this one, honestly. Like, I feel like everything that like makes Wit like a special and a recognizable studio can be found in this work. Now obviously everybody else would probably say like, oh yeah, things like Attack on Titan, things like Spy X Family nowadays are things that like Wit is like more widely known for. But going back through like maybe like a few years later, like if the show like never gets like a resurgence and people like talking about it, like I feel like that would be like kind of a shame, because like I got that same feeling where like after Titan, after like they dropped Titan, it was a big question mark, like where does the studio go from here. Obviously, they had like other things to like their name, like things like Ancient Magus Bride and like The Great Pretender were things that
Vinland Saga
people watch for them. Yeah, Vinland Saga too. But like they had never done like an original that like garnered like that amount of like of a discussion or like success after it ended. And like, yeah, it is a spectacular show. Like I remember like showing it to like my sister, because like sometimes like we watch anime together, and like it was like an awesome time just like getting to show this show to people who haven't seen it before. And honestly, like it's like it is like very compelling and very layered, but I think it's like a good show that you could just like drop on somebody. It's got something for everybody. I feel like if you just like want like really like high fidelity action sequences and just a cool show aesthetically, it'll do that for you. But also if you like want like that comparing character journey, it has that as well. So it can satisfy like a whole bunch of people. And yeah, like it was awesome. It was certainly like one of the standouts like from 2021 as well. And like I said, if you ask me like to like what is like the Witch show, I would say this, like, for now.
It's like crazy. It's crazy, right? Because Wit is like they're so amazing, right? Like we all know that they're like so incredibly talented over there. And I feel like people didn't really put respect on their name until relatively recently. But like, despite the legion of just like really, really like, not even if you don't think some of these shows are goated, like people, they're just like unbelievably popular in and of themselves, right? So like when you talk about Titan, regardless of whether you like it or hate it, right? People love that shit, right? People love Titan. That's why they keep doing it over and over again, right? They'll never stop. They'll never stop unless you tell them to stop, because people love that show. They love the narrative. They love everything surrounding it. And like they've done that multiple times, right? Like they've done Titan, they've done Vinland Saga, they've done Spy X Family, and despite them having like such incredibly popular shows to their name, it still feels like this is the show that really defines them. And I think that's so special, right? Like that is insane to think that amongst everything else, like this is the defining witch show. And you won't really understand what we mean unless you watch it yourself. Like you really won't get it unless you give it a try. Because like it is definitely like you'll never see this show in talks of popularity amongst shows like Spy X Family and Titan. Like you'll just never see that, right? It will never hit that level of popularity, unfortunately, because this show really does deserve it. But that for that reason, like you just won't really understand the gravity of what this show did for the studio until you like set aside some time and watch the 13 episodes yourself. It is just like such great stuff. And yeah, 2021, I was just like, man, this is like, is this just the best? Like, is this just the best show? Like, it was like it really like almost got to that point. I was like, it might just be the best show. I was like, oh shit, like that's what's up. But yeah, it definitely a super important turning point for Wit. And like really, like I said, like as long as this is the direction that they're going with their shows, like they will, in my eyes, always be a goated studio. Like they have earned that at this point, through their both their adaptation stuff and originals like this. Sometimes I think like studios do adaptations and then you wonder like, are they being carried, right? Are they being carried by the prominence of the source material? Because that is the thing, right? That there are shows that get adaptations that it really doesn't matter that much, like how well it's animated, like how well it's presented, because of the name behind the source material, right? Like it's just it's like too popular to fail in a lot of cases, right? And so like some studios you question, like, can they do it by themselves? Can they do it without a big name attached to it? Answer for Wit Studio, absolutely yes, and more. They absolutely can do it.
Tried to prove that point like several times.
Yes.
Like dropping Titan, but also like dropping Vinland Saga to Mappa as well. Like we have to mention that as well. Like also, like they, and also like Ancient Magus-Bride. They're not doing Ancient Magus-Bride season 2.
Yeah.
Which to me was like, at this point, I can't say I'm surprised because it's happened so many times now.
Yeah.
Where they just like give away like their, things that like shows that they did very well.
Yeah.
It's not even like they didn't do the shows well.
They were great.
They did them spectacularly.
Mm-hmm.
They like they're kind of like a stepping stone for a lot of like studios. Like in this regard, like they are like the starting point, like, and without like that really like strong start to any of like these series that they've handed off, like who's to say like people thought that the continuation in another studio would be good.
I think the coolest thing and the last thing I'll say about Wit is that like I think they are truly an inspiration to the industry, because like they have created an avenue of success that like many will not look at. A lot of people will look at shows and look at series and they will say success is defined by the amount of sales or how many people watch the show or whatnot, right? And Wit is saying like our version of success is us bringing to life stories that we want to bring to life, like we want to be doing the things that we want to do, and we're willing to sacrifice to get there. And I think that's so cool. Like not even like within the anime industry, that's just life, right? Like being able to say like I want to do the things that I want to do, not necessarily what the general public will define as my success. Like that's so fucking cool, bro. That's so sick that they're able to do this and really find themselves. And I think like moving forward, like every studio, I hope they get the opportunity to do that as well, that they get to chart their own course and kind of do the things that they're passionate about and bring to life the stories that they want to bring to life, because like we get some of the greatest pieces of art whenever studios are able to do this. And Vivy is definitely up there when we talk about great pieces of art in the anime medium. So definitely Wit, man, you guys are sick. Keep doing what you're doing. I need more from you guys for sure. I need more.
If you missed it on Vivy in 2021, like
yes.
It's still here, bro.
It's still here.
It's not
long.
Anywhere.
It's only 13 eps, so it's not like that big of a commitment either. So Yeah, definitely check it out. So, Bobby, you're up next, bro. You got another one for us?
Bobby stepped away for a bit.
Oh, he stepped away?
I
Okay,
think
we can go to Dylan.
Cool.
Well, what was your next one? I'm sorry.
Penguindrum.
Oh, right.
Penguindrum.
I just like this gif a lot. I'm not gonna lie.
Mawaru Penguindrum.
This gif is goated. Hold on.
Completely unhinged glue eater type energy.
There you
I'm
go.
sorry.
So from the same directive mind that brought you Revolutionary Girl Lieutenant, brings you Penguindrum, Mawaru Penguindrum, and it's well, for better or for worse, it's the Ikuhara anime. It's a very out there anime, and I don't want to go into too much depth, but it is just at times very abstract, very vivid. But there's very large focus on kind of like, will you let destiny take control of your life, or will you take control of your own life and decide your own fate? And it's very cool how they kind of integrate this within the anime. A big selling point but a big piece of the anime is like just like these train rides, and like obviously it factors very much well into like the plot of the anime, as well as like a visual metaphor for like fate. You're on the tracks of life. Will you maybe try to change? Will you stay on course, or will you try to change like the trajectory of this train to steer it the way you want? And it's a very cool, very abstract, very bizarre anime, for lack of a better term. And while I don't think it's quite as well thought out as Utena, it really does execute some of its themes very, very well.
This is a show that like me and Dylan watched relatively recently, like a couple months ago, and that's because we love what Ikuhara brings to the table. Like him as a director is like he is known for his original anime as well. Like he's an individual who he is a storyteller through the anime medium, like through and through. He got his I guess he was like first like really recognized like on his work on Sailor Moon, which then transitioned into like his desire to create a story like Revolutionary Girl Utena, and then he hasn't produced like a large volume of works, but the ones that like he has like always like garner like attention because of his reputation that he's built up, like not only like as like a director and animator, but also like as like a mentor to a lot of people. Like a lot of people cite Ikuhara as their main source of inspiration for the types of work that they go on to produce. And going back to like Mawaru Penguindrum, like this is like his like first original that like after Utena, which is like aside like many years later, like Utena was like 1997, and like this is like in 2011.
Yeah,
2011.
So like so many years later, and like it still carries like that same type of like abstract energy that he's known for. Like definitely like more like I think visually abstract than like his past works. It definitely like feels more like akin to like something that Shaft would do. In terms of like how it visually tells its story, and whenever there is like a strong visual language, I have to think that like anime is like there's more you can do in anime than like still like what's the word?
Manga panels.
Manga panels. Like I was trying to figure out a way to describe it without sounding like derogatory.
Manga panels can convey like a lot of very good, strong emotions, but there's a lot of just subtle things you can't, like subtle animations and stuff you can't really do with manga panels.
Yeah. Dylan said before, but like the show is extremely like vivid, and manga is grayscale. and I think color is like an important part to like, you know, what builds this show's like identity, like a big part of it. And there's honestly like too much to talk about the show. Like it's extremely layered. It wants to say like a lot. Like Dylan like laid out like the general like vision that it wanted to convey. But there's like there's so much to talk about. Like we said like as soon as like we finished the series that like we probably need to watch this again to like get like the full scale of like what was being told to us, and that's a good thing. Like,
yeah,
you know,
for sure.
Like when it comes to anime, like there's a lot of like components of anime that you can tell a story through, convey themes through, like grow your characters through. There's like we talked about color. There's like the character animation. There's like storyboarding and compositing, and there's so many things that like go underutilized a lot of the time, I feel. But when you have like an original anime, you are making it for the medium. You better like use everything at your disposal, otherwise your project is like going to fail.
Yeah.
And this show is like far from a failure. In fact, I'd say it was like in a lot of ways an undeniable success for those who like watch it. Like this show has a pretty like dedicated like cult following that has like shown up in a couple of conversations when people like talk about like Ikuhara. They like if they don't look to like Utena or like the myriad of like works that like he inspired as a director that came after it, like things like Revue Starlight, for instance, they're probably talking about this show. So it's crazy. Originals, man.
Yeah. That's so cool.
For real.
It's like, man, they really be snapping sometimes, bro. It's like
yeah. Out of all like the originals that like we've talked about, this is probably like one of the harder ones to like recommend because it is
so abstract.
Yeah,
it's so abstract. Like
and so out there.
You need to be paying attention during the show, otherwise you're not going to enjoy yourself if you don't pay attention, and two, like you are like gonna like completely like miss the point, I feel.
Yeah.
If you're not like constantly thinking about like what you're experiencing, and like that's the type of show that like we enjoy. Like we're looking for like things that like don't spoon feed you things, things that like I feel like respected as like a viewer whenever I watch shows like this.
Yeah.
Like it feels like the creators like put a lot of trust in us in order to interpret like what they are creating, and I think it is more often seen in original anime than it is in adaptations, because like there's like less like I guess like abstract type of works that come from other mediums. Not that there can't be, obviously. I'm not saying that. I'm just like when I think like of that type of like abstract approach, I think movement and such, and not just like I'm lingering on one thing, and like it's a lot, and so like if you feel like intrigued by the show from like what we said about it, like we would recommend it, but also like it is like a mental investment.
Yeah, it's usually like we probably would recommend you at least like watched a decent amount of shows before trying, is like where I'm kind of gleaning. Because like some shows you definitely don't want to start people out with. I don't think this is one that you want to throw someone to the wolves on early on.
I would say this would be
Tommy Galaxy is a perfectly valid show to start somebody on.
Bro, not like this.
But it's still very valuable despite that being the fact. So if you want to give it a try, feel free. And it's 24 eps, which is always nice for you bingers out there. You know what I'm saying? Get a little bit more to your content likings. But
and I guess like this is also like an opportunity to recommend like Ikuhara's like other stuff. Like we said, he is like an anime storyteller. Like he makes things for anime. Like everything he makes is original. So if you ever like want to like culture yourself on like one of the greats of the anime industry, like he's that guy. He's him
for sure. All right. Next we have Jeffries. Okay, we have another.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead. Unless you want to do the other.
I want to talk about. Yeah, I want to talk about
ZLS. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Just make sure that we can, within the time that we have.
Yeah.
It's
fine.
He's back. The lad.
Yeah.
All right.
So, Zombieland Saga. Quick introduction if you don't know what this is. This is an original idol series produced at Studio Mappa, of all places. If you thought that Mappa only did the edgy, gritty, type of really dark type of shonen stuff, you'd be wrong, because this is a show that I really remember them for, because it's it was an original from them, and it really was unlike anything that they had ever produced beforehand, before this show. Whenever you probably heard me talk about or bring up the concept of the dartboard anime or in the past, and I think this is where I really started to use that term. Where you take two very dissonant concepts, and then you try to combine them, and sometimes it flops, but sometimes you get miracles to happen where it actually works. And I feel this is one of the instances where that actually did super well, because it is zombies and idols, which are two things where a normal human mind would have never come up with. I feel who does that sound like a good idea to you? Just on paper?
Let's fucking go with it.
Absolutely, yes.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. But this is tying this to original anime. This is the type of thing that anime just characteristic to the medium just does things that are just off the wall, so incredibly absurd that no other medium would even dare to try something like that. That's one of the reasons we watch anime. It's because if you want to really get down to experiences that you can't find anywhere else, you can sometimes look to things that are just so absurd that no one else would even conceive the idea. And Zombieland Saga is a great representation of that idea, where we have voiced our problems with the idol genre ad nauseum, so I won't get to too deep into it. But I feel this show really subverts everything that all the problems that we had with this, or with the genre. And that's because it is just at the end of the day such a ridiculous idea executed in such a ridiculous way. Adding zombies on top of on top of idols, the comedy just really hits all the right notes.
Oh, it's really funny. It's very, oh my god, funny.
I freaking love this show. It's so it's so memorable, which is I think it's its greatest characteristic. These type of shows, I don't think you would ever forget if you would experience them for the first time. And on top of that, it's a good show. It's not just
it is.
It's not just it's not a novelty, sure, but it is a quality show in my mind, especially the second season. The first season has its problems.
Yeah, for sure.
But the second season, really,
I
the
think
series really grew into
I was blown away by the second season, actually. I remember when while I was watching it, I was like, wow, they really just kind of did everything even way better. It's actually pretty nuts. The sequel was as strong as it was, while still maintaining its identity, right? That's the main thing. It's if you choose to switch up and go in a completely different direction, of course you can get some new perspective, but it still felt like Zombieland Saga just executed even better than the original did. It kind of covered some of the issues that the last one had, and it still was extremely funny the entire way through. The music was still good all the way through. It gave more love and care to some of its characters as well on top of that, which was just really cool to see. And Tatsumi is still just as ridiculous as he always is, which he's definitely one of the stars of this show. He is just like, there's like very few anime characters like this guy. I don't know what's wrong with him. He's out of control. He's like, there's something wrong. Like, yeah, good.
No, yeah, like it definitely feels like with the second season, they like used the zombie concept well. Like first season, it kind of felt like, I don't want to say it like felt like it definitely kind of felt a bit like the dartboard effect, where they just said pick two things out of a hat and then yeah, let's go with this. But during the second season, there were moments where it felt like them being zombies helped play into the some of like the season's ideas.
For sure.
Yeah,
because they were like really... they did it for memes, right? In the first season, they did it as like it was like a joke, like a funny like thing. But like when you get to the concept of like people who don't age, like basically immortals, like being icons rather than like people, it's like interesting. They like really flesh out the ideas a lot more in season 2, and you're just like, you see characters like go on long rants about their humanity, and I'm like, damn, our main characters don't deal with that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like it's surprising like how good this show was for what it was, you know?
Yeah.
Like I don't think like people like hear like what Zombieland Saga is on paper and think like this is like a good show, or like a pretty great show for that. But it really is. Like I really like, this is like if I was to like, I remember like there was this thing called like your favorite anime like meme template or something. And like, you know, it's something that like you categorize like different shows like based on something like, oh, best soundtrack, like best animation, best fight scene, that type of thing.
Yep.
And there was like a category that said like it's usually not my thing, but
yeah,
like that was the category where it's like something that you wouldn't expect yourself to like enjoy or like, you know, talk, you know, very highly about. It was like Zombieland Saga is like definitely like that show for me. Where like, you know, I do not condone a lot of like the idol shows that have come out over the years. Like, you know, they have their audience. I'm not going to say they don't.
Of course.
They're very successful, like, you know, because of, you know, the dedicated fans and such. Like these shows are, these like series and multimedia franchises are very lucrative.
Money printers.
Yeah.
But like when it comes to like their anime, it's usually like a secondary, or like, you know, not the priority at all. It's just like a means to like sell merchandise or sell other forms of media, like, you know, mobile games or live shows or what have you. Like anime is like not a priority for them. But with something that like started out as like an original anime and hasn't really like branched off into like that big like multimedia, like a big multimedia franchise.
Yeah. No.
It seems like it's going against like the conventions of like what, you know, idol media is, like, you know, in Japan especially, where it is an original anime. There's not much else other media other than like, you know, some complimentary manga for reading and like, you know, building a little bit more of like the lore of the show. Like, yeah, it really does stand out as like something that like really wanted to like break away from the things that people don't like about idol shows, like especially like to me, because I've talked about that too much.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, become its own thing and also like be a very quality show on top of that.
For sure. I cannot wait for this shit to come out. I don't know when we're gonna get info, but like
I
need this, bro.
Just when you think they couldn't get any weirder at the end, they just get you again.
I know, right? Like they just somehow they keep doing it to us over and over again.
The trailer scares me, bro.
They just keep doing it to us, man. No matter what, we're like on this wild ride, and we're gonna be on this wild ride until they decide to stop. And who knows when the hell that'll be?
I can't wait for it to be a recap movie.
Oh God!
In live action form.
Jesus Christ! But yeah, like aside from all that, like, you know, speaking on how sometimes it takes shows a little bit of time to really figure out their identity and then like take it and run with it. Like definitely stand out amongst sequels. I would say for sure. We're talking about revenge. Like it definitely. It feels like the second season they were like, okay, now we know exactly what the hell we want to do, and once they figured that out, it's like just nothing but quality really came from it from there. So it was definitely really, really cool. Has really good music as well. I really like their songs, especially their openings are obviously bangers, both of them.
Yeah.
And you know, like Mappa is just like they just have range, right? Like the fact that it's Mappa is like, wow, like you guys are literally like, oh, what are they doing right now? Doing fucking Vinland Saga, and we're ready to do Attack on Titan season 42. It's like, okay, and then all right, go ahead, have some idols, have some zombie idols. Are you down? Yes, I'm down.
I go as far to say like this is probably like my favorite Mappa series, like, or like it's this or like Dancer on.
Okay.
You know, like and like it's funny because like those are like two shows that, you know, obviously like not at the top of like their popularity.
Yeah.
When it comes to like Mappa series, but like, you know, it goes to show like if you dig just a little deeper into like you know, the studio conversation, if you're not already like, you know, diligent when it comes to like, you know, checking up on studios in any given season.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find things that are like surprisingly good in both of those shows, but like this one especially because like, you know, of the things that like of its like benefits as like an original, so to speak.
Agreed. All right, Bobby, do you want to do your next one since you were gone? Do you have another one for us?
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about Agretzko.
Okay.
This is a show that people have not seen. They still don't watch it. It's literally on Netflix. The episodes are short, but this is a show where it's like this doesn't like fit the mold of like what most people look at and say this is anime.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to some degree it's like to its benefit, but like it's like so. Agretzko is a Sanrio character. She basically is living a story that is a little bit real, where she's basically dealing with a bullshit company that like sucks, and like she has to navigate her adult life, like. And so if you're a young adult and like you're just kind of lost as like how to navigate like your world, like don't worry, Agretzko, she's got the same problems going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's really a unique show that I think like gets overlooked a lot. Like there's things that happen where it's like her friend groups change, like romantic interests are different. They're also on their final season. I mean I mean Netflix just kind of batch release them all because that's how they do things. I hate it. But
Agreed.
Yeah, like this is a show where it's like it's obviously trying to like market a it's like a marketing type of show where it's like it's trying to give you a character that like you're supposed to buy merch for. Like that's how they make most of their money.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it genuinely is like a really interesting show that like is doing things that other shows just don't. Like the fact that it's a bunch of like animals, obviously, but the problems they deal with are extremely real, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the way that the show progresses, we see like the different relationships that Retsuko is a part of, how they all fall apart. We see like her friends, like from the beginning to her friends now, and we see like how things have changed. You know, the character development in this show is really cool because it's not just like, this is the character story arc. It's like it's organically like changing everyone in the office space. That's like making it really compelling. And I feel like it's a show that doesn't really get mentioned enough. And like in terms of like original anime, it's like I feel like in some ways this is more original than most originals.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like you know, the identity of this show. I think you kind of hit on it, where like a lot of people would look at this and be like, that's not really anime, right? Because they have like a preconceived set of characteristics that they feel like all shows must abide by to be considered anime. But despite that, like, I mean, it definitely is one, like 100%. You know, definitely gated in some ways by, you know, Netflix, I would say. But like at the end of the day, it still ticks all the boxes, right? It's the only thing really different about it is that it's shorter, because it's like 15-minute eps, right? As opposed to like your standard like TV show length, but that doesn't disqualify it from having all of the like good characteristics of a good show, right? Like I look at it, and my first take, like whenever I looked at it, I was like, this looks kind of cute.
Nah, it's
I know,
what's really
but
funny
then I look
is-
at the background. I look at the background of the key visual, and I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, it's like that's what's up.
Yeah, no. If you look at that top image, what's really funny, like the banner image, like the character on the left is the fakest piece of shit that's like ever walked the earth. Like she's the most like prepped up fake person. But what's really interesting is that when we start having more, we finally like crack her surface and we see like what's underneath. She's still the same person, but it's a lot easier to see where she's coming from because it's like a type of thing where it's like she's much more a product of her environment than we realize, and all of her superficial garbage is more of an adaptation than superficial garbage.
Yeah. It's like cool because like despite it being like that, like I feel like this would be like one of the more relatable shows for a lot of people. Like a lot of people would be able to find points in their life, especially like if you work at like an office job or something like that. Like you're gonna run into people that are kind of like that, right? Like there are people that kind of feel like they're manufactured or like trying to conform to a certain set of rules, or they feel like they have to be a certain way in the workplace, and like I feel like there's a lot of people, especially in our age group, that could find a lot of relatability with like in regards to like interacting with people in that way, and kind of, you know, this is like, you know, I'm sure some of you feel like this sometimes, like this pent up rage in the background. You're like, girl, fuck off, man. Like it's like get away from me. But yeah, no, it definitely I think is just kind of gated by the fact that most people look at it and they're like, this isn't Naruto. Like what
They think it's like a kid show, but
yeah, that's
it's
definitely
like
a thing.
they look at it and they're like, this is for children, and then like you open up and like the main character's recovering from a hangover and there's beer cans littered all over her apartment. It's just like, yeah, no, this is not supposed to be for kids. But
there's definitely been a lot of great shows in anime that have been glossed over because people feel like they're for kids, or they feel like it's not directed towards like their gender demographic. But like really, like I can't stress enough, like you should probably just let go of that concept, because you know, very early on into my anime watching career, like there were times that were like that for me too. I was like, is this really for me? Like is this what I want, right? And then I watched Madoka and I was like, okay, I'm never doing that shit again. I'm like
there's always that one show that like breaks you a little bit, that you're just like, yo, maybe there's other cool stuff in anime than I thought.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you know, I feel like it took something like that for me to even get into like especially like slice of life genre, right? And its subgenres, like the cute girls doing cute things genre is like something that I think a lot of people feels like challenges their identity. They're like, well, I'm supposed to be like a manly man, but I'm watching cute girls do whatever the fuck they're doing, right? But that just because like that is like an overarching theme of the show, it doesn't mean that there isn't substance there, and there isn't something that still speaks to people outside of the perceived demographic that they're catering to. Like anime really is for everyone, and everyone can find something that really appeals to them. And so I think it really benefits people, especially like if you're early on into your watching career, that you just keep an open mind, right? Like you really never know where quality will come from. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Like a lot of the best shows that we've watched is because we're just like, this, we don't really know how this is going to go. We're just going to watch it and see what happens, right? Like we're not afraid to do that. And I feel like a lot of people should not be afraid in that way. And like, you know, if any of what Bobby talked about is appealing to you in any way, don't let the outer shell fool you. Like there might be some really, really good shit there, and there's like 5 seasons of it or some shit. Like how many, this shit's been going on for what's going on here? Like
yeah, I think they're on season 5 and it's ending.
Season 5, like sheesh, like I mean that's a lot of content. Like so, and like it would be a crime, right? It'd be a crime for you to you know, deprive yourself of this much content, like, because you like it might end up being your favorite show. You never know until you watch it, right? You never know. Right? And if it does end up being something you really like, you just stopped yourself from watching 5 seasons of quality because, you know, some preconceived notion in your mind. So like, yeah, I can't stress that enough. Like, that's something that's kind of bothered me in modern era, because like there's still a lot of people that really think that way. That, you know, I'm not gonna watch this because it's like it's too girly or too this or too that. It's like, bro, like who the fuck cares?
Get over it.
Like, who the fuck cares, bro? Like, who are you? What are you trying to prove to who? Like, just watch the show if you like it. Like, I don't understand. I don't get it. But yeah, definitely. I think I might actually check this out now that you talk about it. Honestly,
it's a clean, like easy experience to watch.
Yeah,
every episode is short, and the longer ones get longer when they have to be, but they're never crazy.
It's like fascinating, like hearing like whenever like Bobby like talks about the show, because like, you know, like the things that like, you know, we talked about like that keep people from watching this like outside of like, you know, being a Netflix show or whatnot, like is like, you know, like the perceived like, you know, demographic, because like, you know, it looks like a kid's show, but like I feel like the things that like people find like relatable about this, I think that effect would be like less if it was just like, you know, actual like humans, you know?
Yeah. Agreed.
I'm just like thinking in my head, like, okay, like if I work in an office, by the way, like I live the office life. If I was to just like watch like, I don't know, in anime with just like people like going about like their office life, or like a live action of like people going about their office life with like, you know, and those exist obviously, and some of them have like proven to like be like very good, but like I feel like in general, I'd be like, yeah, this is kind of boring, and I'm not really like connecting, even though that I am in that same environment. But like when it comes to shows like Retsuko, I feel like the things that make it like very visually distinct, and also like make it like, you know, very funny, like it's like an enjoyable experience in that regard. Like you kind of like it increases that effect of like, wow, this is like actually like too real. It like kind of like juxtaposes like things that are like, you know, very fantastical and things that are very like grounded in nature. And you know, I think that speaks to like the originality of it, where like, man, like you could have like just made like a normal like Sanrio show that is very cute and actually just for kids, or you could have just like made like just like a workplace like depiction with like actual like humans and such, and try to like make it relatable. But I think when you like put those two together, it creates like a very like, you know, it's an interesting like phenomenon where like, oh, you're connecting with something that is just ridiculous at some points. But you kind of like feel that you find something that you didn't expect you to find. It's like a surprise in that way.
Agreed. Yeah. Don't let your dreams be dreams, people. Just watch the shows you want to watch. Who the fuck cares? Like, if you have friends that are harassing you about the shows that you watch, they're not friends. All right, straight up. I'm here to tell you. Like, no honest friend is gonna be like, yo, you're watching that? Like, what a weird, like.
Unless it's Boku no Pico.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, that's different. That's different.
I was about to say we're friends with Dylan. That's different. We're all good friends with Dylan.
Yeah, we know. I mean, that's true. Yeah, but we still love Dylan for his taste, though. Like even though.
Well, listen, there's literally nothing wrong with the Battle Harem light novel adaptation.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
There's nothing wrong with Magic High School where the magic is actually science, but they call it magic.
There's nothing wrong with the Magic High School that just happens to have mechs, okay?
Really be like that sometimes. But
listen, sometimes weapons look too pretty. I need some of the worst weapon designs known to man.
There you go.
Just thrown in my face.
There you
Weapons aren't allowed to be sleek and cool. They need to be over-designed and awful.
They need to be garish, oversized, and have to be like bright neon pink.
The color palette needs 5 colors or I'm out.
And also, they all need to be different neon shades of colors.
I'm down.
Otherwise, I'm out.
Fuck it. Okay.
My friendship with Dylan every day.
I really be like that sometimes. right, let's talk about our last of the collective shows that we have for you guys. We're gonna talk about SHIROBAKO. Now this is like not even just amongst originals, right? Because obviously the focus of today's show is like showing you guys like standout originals, right? This is just like a standout show in general. Like it's just like it is like probably one of the highest averages amongst our ratings. It might be like top 3 averages, maybe even higher. I don't know. People pretty highly rated down here, right? Yeah, 95, 97. It's definitely amongst the goated series amongst us. And so like, you know, and it's hard to get that level of praise out of all of us. Like it is difficult because like we've watched a lot of really good shit. And you know, it despite that, right, it's just incredible, and it's a meta show. I love meta shows, bro. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah,
I like.
Nah, I mean, dude, the meta aspect is what makes it so incredible. Right?
Exactly,
like,
exactly.
It's literally like this is like the one show that gets better the more anime you watch, which is like absurd because most anime you watch just dilute the pool of what you think. Or like they either raise the bar or they dilute the pool.
Yep.
You know, and so it's like, how can they have constructed such a weird like chemical reaction in which they've made an anime that gets better the more you watch anime?
They've tapped into the
any type of like anime discussion you can pretty much tie back to like this show. Like there's actually like, and that's not just like on the virtue that it is an anime about making anime. It's not just like, oh, like this is just like a workplace show about making anime. It like it's like a great representation of like things that anime can do in and of itself, while depicting the creation of anime.
Yep.
And you know, trying to like tie this back to like, you know, SHIROBAKO as in original. This is really something that I feel like can only be in an anime because of how much it understands the craft, you know? There could be like, you know, documentaries about making anime. There could be manga about making anime. There could be like, you know, just like live action about making anime, you know, whatever. But I feel like it's like, you know, its purest form, only like a medium understands itself the best. To get a little bit, I don't know, like artsy about it. And I think SHIROBAKO like stands up at the top of like, you know, the shows that have like tried to like depict the creation process of anime, because there've been a few over the years,
for sure.
You know, things like Esuken, which are also like it's also like, you know, I love that show a lot for like what it does, but like that's kind of like more on like the fantastical like depiction of like, you know, the creative process, like you know, the inner workings of like my mind are an enigma type thing.
Yeah. I'm 15 and this is deep type shit. I fuck with that.
But with this show, like everything, like here's the cool thing about the show. You know, one of the cool things about the show. Everything it explains and like explores about anime, you can see in the show itself. I feel like whenever they're talking about like things like animation, directing, character design, voice acting, everything that they talk about is done like, you know, in spades in the show itself. And I feel like that is it's such like a weird sensation that like, you know, you can kind of like see like the, you know, the inner workings of like, you know, the people who create anime like unfold like right in front of you as they're like, you know trying to explore them.
Yeah, you got to practice what you preach.
yeah. It'd be one thing if like, you know, it was like a bland show and they just like say like, oh yeah, this is how anime works. But it's a really like it's both show and tell, because they do a lot of like, you know, verbal exposition about like, you know, the thought process that people who work in the anime industry like go through. But it's another thing to do that and to prove that you can do it and prove that you actually understand it.
Yeah. No, agreed. For sure.
It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, they're not force feeding you anything, but they tell you what's up. And then because they tell you what's up, you start looking for what's up. And because the show is made with such care and like delicate craft, you can like just see it in the show, and you're like, aha, this is exactly what you were talking about. This show is incredible.
They did it.
It's
They
like
did. Yeah, he said it.
it's almost overt how it's almost overt, but it doesn't feel like they're force feeding you because they're making anime within the anime, and so you see like not only what they're practicing in the characters' efforts. You not only just see the anime that they make, but you can also just see it throughout the entire process of like, well, what about the anime that you yourself are watching right now? And it's like, yes, these principles that they talk about are still being used to like great effect, and you're just like, dang, this is crazy. Like it almost contains the tell portion of like the show and tell, basically, where it's like with the anime within the anime is the tell, but the true show is the anime itself. Yeah. And it's just like, dang, that's, I mean, it gets a little confusing when I explain it that way.
The ultra flex, bruh. The ultra omega flex.
All you gotta know is that when you watch this show, this is the standard that all anime want to be at.
Yep. A true gold standard in that regard. Like it's so crazy. So crazy to think that shows like this can exist. And like, unfortunately, obviously the nature of like, I think it didn't have issues like platform and like being available.
Oh, it still has platform issues.
Control once upon a time, and then licensing runs out, and like, oh my god, the show is lost, and it was on Funimation for a bit, and then it got taken off of there as well. Apparently, like only enough countries, us included. It was on High Dive for a little while. Dude, where is it? Why was this show on literally every single platform, and now it's not on no platform?
I think the movie's on High Dive now, but the series, no, I don't know. No, I'm sorry. The movie is on Crunchyroll. Okay. But it's not on, the series itself is not on any official platform anymore.
Yo, how is the show 8.5 years old?
Right.
Did my math deceive me?
Dude, no, this is like, this show is like one of like, it's not even old, like per se, but like even like years and years and years in the future, this will like be like one of like the best aged shows.
Yeah, for sure.
Ever.
For sure. It's like fine wine.
I don't think anything that's like in this show will like become outdated or obsolete in any to any degree. The things that are like present in this show, like we will continue to look to when we are like evaluating like what makes a show amazing. It is really like special in that regard, where it'll just like stick with us. And I feel like I don't want to say like this show is like a hit with everybody who watches it, because like I said, like it scales with like your enjoyment and your appreciation scales with like how much anime you've seen. And so, like, say like you watch this anime like as within your first 10 anime, you're not gonna get why this show is good.
Yeah.
If you watch it like after you watch like 50 anime, you'll be like, yeah, that was pretty good. Like, I see what they were putting down. Like, anime is a pretty cool medium. But like once you like get into like how much anime that like we've watched collectively, like you really start to see like the merits of this show, and like it's incredible to think that it stood completely on its own merits.
Yeah.
Within itself, like being an original anime by PA Works, and maybe like pivoting the conversation to like PA Works, like they are like a studio that is like 95% like originals. Like they've only done a handful of adaptations over the years.
Yep.
And just like looking like through their library, you can kind of like see like the ups and downs of like their journey.
For sure.
We're not gonna I'm not one to like ignore like the valleys of any studio.
Yeah, for sure.
But
I think the valleys are tied to a singular person, but
it really be like that sometimes.
There's been a lot of mid not tied to he who should not be named unless relevant.
We're not doing that. We're not. But know what?
My brain's going full circle. Okay, so in Charlotte, the Jun Maeda work in PA work.
He said it.
What's that?
How we go?
I had to dox him. We started the show with Code Geass.
Yeah.
When Charlotte was coming out, wasn't there discussion that Charlotte was just stealing from Code Geass?
Oh my god.
True.
We didn't go down this rabbit hole. I'll just say that much.
It really be like, but that does give us a good segue since we're talking about PA Works. Can move on to our next one
with every P Works failure, there was a grand success.
Yes.
This one really slid under the radar, and I'm kind of disappointed that it did. So Aquatope is a show that came out 2 years ago, I think.
2021, yeah.
2021
tail end, and it really flew under the radar. Not a lot of people really picked it up, and not a lot of people particularly liked it. But I don't know. I just felt like there were just very strong character interactions, especially between the main two. They've got these two girls who had their hopes and dreams set out for like their life ahead of them, and it unfortunately just never really works out the way you want it to. But it's always good just seeing people work through these issues and finding something they really want to do, and something they're passionate about, like later down the line, that I just personally really speaks to me.
Yeah, I didn't expect, like, I surely didn't expect for Aquatope to progress the way that it did, but I'm glad that it took this route, because, like, I mean, the premise in and of itself is something that is, like, pretty interesting. I think a lot of people think that becoming rich and famous is like the end goal, right? Like that is the end point of life. Like you've made it, you're satisfied, you don't have to do anything else for the rest of your life, right? And this is the story about a girl who had that. Like she was a successful idol, but that's not really what she was looking to get out of life. And so she takes a route that, most people would be like, why would you go from being an idol to like working in an aquarium? Like that is like, those things are so far apart in terms of like prestige in the eyes of like the general public. And like, I think that's really cool because there's not that many depictions of that. Like, I think these cases do exist in real life as well, but you never hear about them, right? You would hear about it if it was the other way. If it was someone that worked in an aquarium their entire life and then became a famous idol, you would definitely hear about that. But you don't hear many stories about, someone going the other way, taking like, I'm going from the life of fame to a life that is like very, very modest, right? It's literally just working with the animals that you really care about, and from that we get some very, very wholesome and organic interactions between the characters who are so far apart. And like, there's a lot of like characters trying to gain understanding with each other, which I think is really cool. Like really trying to get each other's perspectives and like seeing the world through each other's eyes. And so like, it's also like very cute. The characters are adorable. There's also a lot of them. There's a lot of characters. there's a whole lot of characters. There's also like educational on top of that. Like I definitely learned a few things about animals during this that I like. I've never been that into aquariums or anything like that, but it definitely taught me some stuff while I was watching it. So I think there's a lot of substance. And then it also does this thing where like it kind of has like two distinct arcs, with like the first half and the second half, I would say. And like, I didn't expect for us to get like the arc of like her trying to like adapt to like kind of like corporate life, you know what I mean? Like that was like something really cool too, because I think that's really relatable for a lot of people as well. It's like, what do you do now that you have to like go through approvals and like, you can't, you know what I mean? Like that's something that like people deal with in the real life. Like that is
it's almost like like the first half, it's almost like a dream sequence, right? Kukuru is running the aquarium, trying to make it go. There's like these supernatural elements like that kind of get dropped later down the line, unfortunately, but it transitions itself to a more grounded show where you now have to deal with the reality of trying to make your dreams work.
I actually love the dichotomy that builds, where it's like basically what Dylan like just mentioned, where it's like you have like your dream, right? And it's like you're like this young kid, you have this dream, and then it breaks apart, and then you have to basically compromise on what you thought you truly wanted. And maybe you'll find something good along the way regardless. And it's the same for Fuka, right, where it's like she basically got really high up in her job, but she started to make compromises, and that's those compromises to like her ideal, or how she ended up at the aquarium in the first place. It's through that like shared experience that they have, where it's like they start to grow and like develop as characters. And it's like, dang, like you wouldn't expect the second half of Aquatope to be the way it is, but like goddamn, I'm glad it was.
Yeah. I think
it's really like that, like I said, this type of thing is like really like uncommon, where like usually a show will like depict like one or the other, like the first half is like a very like like juvenile like type of approach to like how young people kind of like view their dreams, and like throughout that first arc it kind of like transitions into like things are like not as easy or not as like whimsical as they seem, and then it like moves into the second act, so to speak, where they do have like actual jobs in like the aquarium industry. I suppose I'm not even sure if I would call it like an industry. It's more like just like they're working at an actual aquarium. The biz. Where they realize that like making your passion your job, like there's a difference between like what you think it's going to be like and what it's actually going to be like.
True.
And it's really like up to you to make the decision of whether or not that is like what you want out of something that you were very passionate about. And like this show is just like super cool, like especially with like it's like motifs like with like the aquarium, because like throughout the show like they like frame the aquarium as like a place for like self-reflection, which is really cool, because like just like staring into the water, it's like it's like very mesmerizing, and you kind of like feel like lost in your own thoughts and your own like insecurities about like your current situation. It's kind of just like a way for you to really like think about your life at any given moment, and that is important to the characters. Like obviously like both like Kukuru and Fuka like see the aquarium as like a place where they feel the most comfortable with themselves, and they see themselves like working here like for their foreseeable future, because like they're like Kukuru is very passionate about like working in aquariums and like working with animals, like learning more about them, taking care of them, and Fuka is like this, like at first the aquarium was like her escape from a life that really didn't bring her a lot of fulfillment, and she finds something like like really like special working in the aquariums, especially like when she moves into like the second act, because like she like went off to like do something. I guess I shouldn't probably say too much because of spoilers, but like she does like commit to the aquarium bit, from like a promising life in show business, and like that's a very like that's a decision that like not a lot of people would make, because of the promised like comfortable life that guarantees essentially. And like
agreed.
And speaking about like how Aquatope and like the grand scheme of like PA Works is like originals, like I would say like other than like SHIROBAKO, it's probably like the best like original that they've done that is like grounded in like slice of life, because like they produced a whole bunch of originals over the year, some of them like a little bit more like supernatural or fantastical, like Jun Maeda's line of shows, for better or for worse, and also things like Irazuku, which is also very good, but like there are some like time travel-y-esque aspects in
it's
there.
very whimsical.
And like, Aquatope has its moments where like you think something like magical is going on, but then you kind of like realize this is kind of like in the heads and in like the head spaces of its characters. And I think like amongst the shows that like PA Works has done that are just slice of lives that are original, I'd say this is the best one, other than SHIROBAKO, which is like
that show is goated status, so there's not really a whole lot we can do about that one, but that definitely makes sense. Let's see here. I think we probably have time for one more, and I think we should actually steal it from Miguel's list since he's not here.
Okay.
All
right.
So yeah, we're gonna round it off with, Miguel had this on his list, but obviously he wasn't with us today. But we're gonna tell you guys about A Place Further Than the Universe, which is, just an insanely strong original. And like, it's so crazy because like, I don't think that people thought that like Madhouse was gonna be the one to do this one, right? Like, if you really if you really think about like the shows that Madhouse are really known for, I think a lot of people would have been like, this is very different than what I was expecting. Especially like, I think the show I watched from Madhouse before Place Further was literally One Punch Man. I think before Place Further it was One Punch Man. Obviously they've done a ton of really important stuff to people. Like they've been involved with Hunter x Hunter and stuff like that. And I think
Death Note.
Yeah, Death Note. Yeah, little known show. You know what I'm saying? Like you might have heard of that one if you talk about anime every now and then, but this one is so different from those, right? Like it's so drastically different from them that like you wouldn't think that this would be an original, but it is, and it is very standout one in that it's like it's such a wholesome story. It's like another one of those like characters really getting behind their passion, right? Like, and I love shows like that. I love that when shows are able to depict like characters being super passionate about something and them just going for it when all is said and done, right? Like they're really just going for it. And it's like once again, like just kind of like they're going to Antarctica, like it's like, bro, like how many shows have you watched where they go to fucking Antarctica? Like that is that's not normal. And this show executes on so many ways. Like it's great visually. I think the complimentary OST is also very good with it, but like the drama, right? The drama in its narrative, I think, is done in such a both relatable way and one that is like super compelling. Like I felt like when I started picking up this show and I started getting into like the deeper parts of its plot, I just like really didn't want to put it down. I was like, man, like this is a pain to watch week to week, bro. Like this is like, bro, like just give me more. I need it now. Like, what are you doing, bro? They're really doing it to me out here. But I had a lot of fun watching the show. And once again, it's like one of those shows that we all rated very highly. I think all of us have watched this at this point, right? I think
another goated.
Yeah, another
this is
together, I'm pretty sure. So
yeah, like if you look at our scores down here, like 9, 10, 80, like this is very high praise from us. It is just a very spectacular show. And I can't remember, like it was in season 2018. I don't even know if it aired along something that was like way bigger or something like that.
Season like winter season 2018 was like actually like super loaded because like there was like this show, there was like Violet Evergarden.
Oh yeah, okay.
There was like Unicamp, which I guess wasn't like a high profile show, but it was a very like
it stood the test of time.
People were also talking about Darling in the Franxx. That
Bunny Senpai, AOT 3.
Yeah, wow.
Oh, Devilman
Crybaby,
for sure.
Yeah,
one of those talked about things.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I was like,
Goblin Slayer.
Like thinking back. Oh God, thinking back to it, it's like that season. Aside from us, there weren't many people talking about this show. There just like really weren't. And looking back, it could have been because there was just so much during that season. Like this season is pretty insane. Looking back at it, there's just a lot of stuff that people care about, regardless of how good or bad it is. Like there's especially like when we talk about sequels, like people will naturally latch on to sequels of well-known series. It just makes sense. So like Madhouse stepping out of what most would say is their comfort zone and putting out an original like this was like a pretty unexpected, but like, man, I kind of wish they would do more like this. I kind of wish that they would all in on this a little bit more, because I was like, man, if this is the Madhouse, if this is what Madhouse could have been doing the whole time, it's like, shit, we've been deprived, bro. Like they've been holding back from us. They've been holding out.
Yeah, this show is like definitely like interesting to me to talk about in the context of original anime, because like one of the things about anime as a medium, like that I have to like consider is that like, can this be done in another medium to the same degree that it is done in anime? And I feel like if there was like any like genre that people would say like, yeah, this doesn't need to be anime, it would probably be like slice of life. I'd have to think, because like, you know, a lot of people think that the genre and its subgenres don't have a lot going for it that is like wholly unique to any medium, and so you can kind of like tell like a very like simple like grounded story in whatever you choose. And just as a personal anecdote, not related to this series,
I mean,
but
that's fine.
So one time, like a couple years ago, I decided to show my parents an anime, and this anime was Violet Evergarden, because I feel like that's a very like accessible show to show people that like, you know, think that anime is like kind of like, you know, whatever nonsense, like, I don't know, just fan service or whatnot, or like not capable of like producing like, you know, high forms of art.
They either think it's for kids or degenerates for adults.
Yeah, and like really like kind of like no in between, or like, you know, man children type of thing. It's like, oh man. It's like, and like they enjoyed the series, because like I've actually like gone into theaters like with my mom to see like the Violet Evergarden films, which is like which is like a cool experience, just like, you know, because like she enjoyed it. But one of the main things that my stepdad said was, and that really like kind of like stood out to me, was this doesn't need to be an anime. And that really hit a certain note in me, where I'm like, I love this medium like to death. Like, it's my favorite way of like experiencing stories. Some like the most impactful pieces of media in my life come from anime. And to like, it really like made me consider like, you know, what is like, what can only be done in anime, like what makes anime special. And that's really like what put me on like this like really like what made me really passionate about like telling people like why anime is good, and why it is like one of the most unique storytelling mediums out there, and why it has had such a big impact on me. And I feel like with this show I can apply that same, you know, line of thinking, where, you know, it is an original slice of life. Like, can this be done in another way, either as effectively or like more effectively? And I'm gonna say confidently that the answer to that is no. It needs to be
definitely not. It has to be an anime.
And the reason for that, because like, if you haven't seen the show, like, first of all, I'd recommend that you just like watch it. Like, it is a fantastic show, like regardless of your demographic or your preconceptions of like what you think you're gonna like. But one of probably like the greatest like asset the show has is building up to its character moments and making those character moments feel earned. And the way it does that is through like the audiovisual depiction of their journey and like their growth as like individuals and as a group of friends. It's hard to explain without just like showing you a moment, and even then, like showing you a moment doesn't show you the build up. Like, there are like so many moments of like just like ethereal like catharsis, where you just like know that this is like such an impactful moment like in their lives that is like going to like change them forever. And you know, in the pre-journey, because like, you know, like this is like going to like Antarctica, in like the pre-journey, and also, and like, you know, when they're actually on the boat going there, and when they actually get there is like like they feel like such like distinct phases of their, you know, their growth in their adolescence, you know.
True.
And like just seeing them unfold, and like, you know, hearing them interact with each other, just like the things that make anime special, and like, you know, depicting human experiences is something that I've grown to appreciate like immensely, you know, throughout my years as an anime watcher.
For sure.
And if anybody like, you know, like my parents were like, oh, like were to question like, does this need to be anime? I will always defend that, like, yes, this needs to be that because XYZ reason. that cannot be done in any other mediums to the same degree. This show is amazing. I watched this recently, like with Miguel, because I wanted to show it to him for the first time, and it has like not lost any of its impact when it comes to like what I talked about.
It's still very good. I mean, it's also not that old. Like it's only 2018, so yeah, for sure. No, I'm just saying, like, I feel like a lot of people like to act like, you know, if something is even a few years old, they're like, bro, that's ancient history. Like, what are you talking about? This shit can't. It's like, no, it's not that long in the grand scheme of things. But I just remember, I distinctly remember watching this in the season that it aired, and just like every week just being so impressed by the stuff that they brought to the table. Also, like, man, their VA cast is like fucking crazy.
Super stacked.
You know, absolutely insane that there's 4 main characters and all their VAs are just like so strong. And so like that's a joy in and of itself, but really the substance is what I was there for. It also like does comedy very well. Like on top of that, it just kind of like has so much range. And it's like one of those shows that's like, damn, like I really wish more people like knew that this even existed. Like a lot of people don't know that this existed, and continues to exist. But you know, it's unfortunate. Like it's unfortunate that, you know, Madhouse did this show, and it's like, if you ask someone about Madhouse, this will like almost never be the show that they bring up first. Like don't like never, right? Just based on Madhouse's repertoire. But like in terms of shows that I've watched from Madhouse, like this is definitely the highest I have rated of all their stuff. So they just really are incredible. Like the show is so unbelievably good. And so I definitely recommend that you guys give it a try if you haven't already. It's just like, man, it's like one of those things that make me thankful that I do just pick up a lot of shows in a given season and just say fuck it and see what happens. Like it's just like you just really never know. You just really never know what'll end up being your favorite. All you have to do is, you know, just commit a little bit, give it a little 3-episode rule. You know what I'm saying? Like
you might be surprised, just like I was, because like this is like a personal like top 3 series for me. Like I've gone on record saying like this is probably like the best slice of life without a gimmick. You know, because you know there are like slice of lives that like appeal to like a certain like, you know, hobby or like demographic or whatnot. But I feel like this is like one that can be considered like, because like nobody, like I'm not gonna say nobody, but like, you know, going to Antarctica is not something you would typically think as like, oh, it's appealing to like this certain niche of people who want to go to Antarctica, type of thing.
True.
And so like this is like a pure slice of life. It is original and it belongs in anime.
It's ironic that like it's ironic that like the things that seem like the most doable in like a live action show, it's also just like not done in live action shows. Like slice of life is like not anime exclusive, of course, but the majority of slice of life storytelling happens to just be anime.
Yeah. That's true.
Kind of telling in a way.
That is true. Like, despite it being something that in your mind you think like, yeah, you could just do that in live action if you wanted to, but they don't. They just don't really, right? So it definitely that's actually really interesting. It's a really interesting point. But you know, I don't know. They just anime they just be doing shit, bro. Like and I'm here for it. They just be doing shit. They're like, let's make a show about girls going to Antarctica. Sure, fuck it, bro. Like, why not?
I mean, like anime really is that medium where it's like you get the most inconspicuous premises and the most ridiculous premises. You know, like the range in which things exist in anime, they just feel broader than everything else. You know, obviously, anime people complain about anime being tropey or whatever, and it's like, yes. To some degree, that's true. To some degree, that's true for every storytelling medium.
Yes,
don't just apply it to anime.
Yeah,
it's just,
that's true.
You know, it just might be easier to spot in anime because anime is like more clippable in general. But it's just like, listen, dude, when you look past the surface, like there's shit in anime that like you just don't get other places. Like this is just the facts.
That's true. That's definitely true. And yeah,
the
It's kept
execution.
us coming back for years and years and years.
yeah, for sure. Like, and so like the overarching sentiment from this episode, guys, is that like you know, keeping an open mind obviously is like one of the things, but like you know, there are like one of the reasons that I like AniList so much in comparison to other sites is that like you can just scroll down and it gives you like so much information on the series that you're interested in, and like right under source they'll tell you like it's original, or it came from a light novel, or and I think like this type of information is really, really cool just for information's sake. Like sometimes I don't even pay attention to it until I'm like a few episodes into a show and I'm like, I wonder if this has source material, and then I look and I'm like, oh, okay, so it's actually original. Sometimes whenever we do our season samplers and we watch a bunch of shows, I'll be like, oh, that's original and from the studio, I'm gonna give that a try. Like, so I am willing to try originals like more than any other type, just because like I said, like you kind of get the unfiltered perspective of the staff and studio that way. Like even a studio that hasn't put out that much good stuff, if you give them an opportunity to do an original, they might surprise you. Like that might be something that happens, or maybe a reputable studio might take a completely different or different direction than you're used to them taking. You know, mostly, like I said, Madhouse, like you probably watch them do some shonen stuff. This is not like that at all. This is not like Hunter x Hunter. This is not like Death Note. These are not like those shows at all.
The furthest thing you can get away from those types of shows, honestly.
Exactly. So it's like, you know, it's cool to see how those studios execute whenever they're, you know, they don't have to abide by some type of source material, and it's just like really, really cool to see. And even better whenever it ends up being, you know, as quality of a show is like placed further. But in general, like, you know, you just give stuff a try. Like, just try it. Like, why not? Like, 3-episode rule it. We always preach by the 3-episode rule. Try it for 3 episodes.
As we learned where that came from this episode.
Yeah, exactly. It came from an original. You know what I'm saying? Like, try it for 3 episodes. You don't like it? Sure, okay. Leave it behind. But you never know. Those 3 episodes could really broaden your horizons and open your eyes to stuff that you never would have experienced otherwise. So that's kind of like what we're trying to get to you guys. Just watch originals, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead and watch some originals. Go if you have, like, you can probably check your list of the stuff that you watch. Go ahead and see how many originals you've seen. Probably a small fraction compared to, you know, because like most of the stuff that, like we said, people talk about is like big adaptations. Like think about all the most popular shows that have been in the past few seasons. Like most of the, like, what was the last like super popular original that came out? Like think about it. Like
we talked about like Code Geass and stuff, and like these will like always like serve as like, you know, pillars of, you know, originals that people will recognize like on the spot. Yeah, but
I'm saying it takes them a long time to even get there, right? Like an original will never be like the talk of the town, like outright, like just on its own immediately. I think it'll always take amount of time for people to like really appreciate it because they don't have anything prior to go off of. You know what I mean?
It's harder nowadays because like there's expectations for like all the hype, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The people on Twitter who are like manga readers or like know the source material already.
Yeah.
Like just in general, like the hype, bringing up hype for like new stuff, because anime is so much bigger now, you know.
It is.
So that like the echo chambers and like the types of things that you hear about, like it just gets amplified, but that also kind of like drowns out a lot of the smaller stuff, especially with how many anime are coming out a season.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I feel like it's even harder nowadays for originals to get the recognition that they deserve, because like social media and stuff, like you need other people who have already seen it to hype it up for you so you know what to watch, you know, in a sense.
It's that word of mouth marketing. Like that makes the world of difference when it comes to like how like the initial like viewership of like any series, but also like the eventual like, you know, reception of it, like at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it affects so much. Like just having people like talk about your series beforehand and having an established audience.
You try to talk about original, and they're like, "This isn't Demon Slayer. What the fuck? Demon Slayer clears, bro. What's wrong with you?"
It's like, oh, let me look up the reviews for the manga for A Place Further Than the Universe, and it's like there are no reviews. There is no. It's like, I'm
you're
sorry.
telling me it has 0 manga sales? What a trash show, bro.
Oh, bro.
It really be like that. Insane. But yeah, hopefully those of you out there enjoyed hearing our talk on originals and decide to give a bunch of them a try. A reminder that if you're still with us, you can subscribe to our YouTube. You can check us out on Twitter, and also these casts are available on Spotify as well. So if you're on the way to work and need something to listen to, these are definitely, I think, a great cast to throw on. We'll try to make it more regular. I mean, this opening to the year was just like so insane with timing, so it just is what it is. Especially after the anime of the year show, kind of had to go into hibernation.
The big boy.
Yeah, March is like, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like for fighting games, like March is pretty insane. So I mean, I guess we can. I mean, I don't know of anything happening in 2 weeks though. I'm not sure.
One Piece card game is big stuff in March.
Let's go. Let's go. Yeah. But yeah, we'll try to make it a little bit more regular and try to make sure Miguel doesn't flake on us next time. But it is what it is.
Some point,
we'll do a
the void wins.
Yeah. But hopefully you guys still enjoy watching and listening, and we'll definitely see you in the next one. Until next time, friends.
Peace.
Catch you later.